Chapter 183. Who? The Yuanyang saber stabbed into the ceiling of the mine. Xiaochen could vaguely see a blurry figure entering the hole in the wall. Spirit-swallowing worm. Xiaochen immediately understood what was going on. His eyes were not playing tricks on him. Those green eyes were the eyes of a spirit-swallowing worm. When Xiaochen entered, it craftily entered the hole. When Xiaochen turned around, it suddenly appeared, wanting to attack him. Coincidentally, when Mu Xinya saw this, she did not have time to explain and immediately attacked. She wanted to save the unaware Xiaochen. Mu Xinya held the other Yuanyang saber in her right hand and pulled it gently. There was an invisible ripple in the air. The Yuanyang saber stabbed into the ceiling trembled and flew into Mu Xinya's hand. "Senior brother Yi, are you alright?" Mu Xinya asked Xiaochen worriedly. Xiaochen checked his body and discovered that there was some green liquid on his left arm. It seeped through his clothes and entered his body through the pores of his skin. After that, it quickly merged with his blood. The blood mixed with the green poison flowed quickly in his body. Not long later, Xiaochen felt dizzy. This was the effect of being poisoned. Xiaochen quickly took out the detoxification pill from the universe ring and swallowed it. He sat down cross-legged and circulated the essence in his body, quickly spreading out the medicinal energy of the pill. The detoxification pill that Xiaochen bought by chance was unexpectedly useful here. The pill quickly dissolved and separated the green liquid from his blood. After a while, Xiaochen felt something sweet in his throat. He spat out the green liquid. Xiaochen opened his eyes and immediately felt much better. The dizziness had already disappeared. The poison of the spirit-swallowing worm was really tyrannical. Just a little bit of it and there were such serious consequences. If he had not prepared the detoxification pill, he might have died here. He got up and looked at the worried Mu Xinya. Xiaochen smiled and said, "I'm fine, the poison has already been forced out." "Thank you." When Mu Xinya heard this, she smiled, "It's fine. Let's go then. We still don't know when that bug will come out." Xiaochen shook his head and said, "This is 5 merit points. Furthermore, it injured me. How could I let it run away so easily?" Since Xiaochen knew of the existence of the spirit-swallowing worm, there was naturally no reason for him to let it go. As long as he was careful and did not get ambushed, there would be no problems. The spirit-swallowing worm was only as strong as a martial grand master. He spread out his divine sense and extended it into the soil in the mine. He followed the aura left by the spirit-swallowing worm and traced it all the way. My goodness, he actually didn't go far. His divine sense circled around and came back. Xiaochen looked at the mine above his head and could not help but exclaim in surprise. The spirit-swallowing worm was actually hiding above their heads. Thud. Xiaochen pushed off the ground and drew the lunar shadow saber. Countless arcs of electricity revolved around the blade of the saber, illuminating the dark mine. Pu ci. The resplendent lunar shadow saber stabbed in with a schwa sound. There was a zzz sound coming from the soil. A green liquid flowed down the blade of the saber and flowed down to the hilt. Xiaochen knew how powerful it was. He circulated the essence in his body to the saber and shook it off. He immediately shook off the poisonous liquid and felt something twisting around the saber. Trying to run? It's too late. Xiaochen smiled coldly and his essence exploded. The cave above his head instantly exploded and the spirit-swallowing worm fell down together with the rocks. There was a rumbling sound in the mine as rocks fell continuously. The two of them dodged to the side and waited for everything to calm down. Then, they started to chase after the spirit-swallowing worm that was dragging its broken body. When it fell to the ground, this spirit-swallowing worm had lost half of its combat prowess. Furthermore, there was the damage that Xiaochen inflicted on it earlier. Not long after, this spirit-swallowing worm was dismembered by the two of them. After Xiaochen obtained 5 contribution points, Mu Xinya asked in confusion, "Senior brother Yi, how did you find it?" Naturally, Xiaochen could not tell Mu Xinya the real reason. He made up a random reason and dug out the spirit core of the spirit-swallowing worm. Because it had been consuming spirit stone raw ores for a long time, the surface of the spirit-swallowing worm's spirit core was very smooth. The spiritual energy it contained was comparable to that of a rank 5 spirit beast. Xiaochen put away the spirit-swallowing worm's spirit core and smiled. I have obtained 5 contribution points. We will split it equally. Mu Xinya smiled gently. You take 30 and I take 20. Contribution points are useless to me. Contribution points are useless to you? Xiaochen looked at Mu Xinya with some doubt. If contribution points are useless, then why did you accept this mission? Mu Xinya seemed to realize that she had said something wrong. She smiled. Don't misunderstand. I was saying that a few contribution points are useless to me. You were the one who discovered the spirit-swallowing worm. I will just take 2 contribution points. So that's how it is. Xiaochen smiled and did not pursue this topic. The two of them left the mine and started to patrol the area according to the map. After that, everything was calm, nothing big happened. Along the way, they discovered a few spirit-swallowing worms. Unfortunately, they were too smart. They burrowed into the ground and ran far away. When it was late at night, the miners started to rest. Xiaochen and Mu Xinya's work came to an end. Xiaochen made a trip to Yiwen's place to inform him of what happened today. After handing over the spirit-swallowing worm's spirit core to Yiwen and recording it down, he could go to the Hall of Contributions to collect contribution points. Nothing happened along the way. Xiaochen thought for a while and was not in a rush to return to the stone room to rest. In a dead tunnel, he found a rather spacious area. Xiaochen drew his lunar shadow saber and started to practice his saber techniques. Although he could not absorb spiritual energy to cultivate here, he could not neglect his saber techniques. Xiaochen first practiced the 8 movements of the saber for 2 hours. He stabilized the basic saber techniques that he had reached small perfection. Then, he started to practice the rushing thunder saber technique and the 3 flowing cloud images that he had already learned. After 4 hours, he finished warming up. Xiaochen rested for a while before he started to practice the clear wind chop. He had already memorized the circulation path of the clear wind chop the night before. At this moment, he slowly executed it. The saber danced in the air, instantly creating a cool breeze. The saber danced up and down in the cool breeze. Xiaochen practiced tirelessly. He executed the clear wind chop hundreds of times, completely exhausting the essence in his body. However, he could not figure out the trick to it. Not to mention being like Lu Riyue and Yiwen, who were able to hide their sabers in the cool breeze, he could not even hide his killing chi. He could only create a cool breeze. He was far from reaching the state where he could only see the cool breeze and not the saber. Where did I go wrong? Xiaochen sat on the ground and thought hard about the logic behind it. There was a saying, the master leads the way, but the cultivation depends on the individual. Lu Riyue could only tell him some of the essence of the clear wind chop to prevent him from taking the wrong path. As for how to comprehend it, that would depend on Xiaochen's own hard work. Even if others told him and allowed him to reach small perfection, he would not be able to comprehend it himself. He would not be able to master the martial technique and would never be able to cultivate it to great perfection. Xiaochen did not dare to absorb the surrounding spiritual energy. He took out an inferior grade spirit stone from the universe ring and absorbed the energy in the spirit stone. Xiaochen's body was instantly filled with essence. Xiaochen got up and continued practicing the clear wind chop. Immediately, a cool breeze blew in the mine. As Xiaochen increased his speed, the wind became even faster. Within this strong wind, Xiaochen's mind was calm. Suddenly, he had an idea. He executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art in his body. Amidst the roaring wind, he soared up like a flood dragon. The clear wind chop was originally a secret technique. It did not have a movement technique to complement it. When it was used, it depended on the user's coordination. It could not be used while moving at high speeds. However, this blue dragon cloud soaring art was surprisingly compatible with the clear wind chop. It was only the first time they worked together and Xiao Chen successfully executed the clear wind chop in midair. Xiao Chen's face lit up with joy. It was as though he had discovered a new continent. He executed the clear wind chop as he retreated quickly. He executed the clear wind chop as he somersaulted. He executed the clear wind chop as he spun. Instantly, he executed the clear wind chop from different angles. Using a secret technique and a heaven-ranked movement technique at the same time exhausted more essence than Xiao Chen had imagined. This time, Xiao Chen only managed to execute about 20 strikes before his essence was completely exhausted. Although the clear wind chop had not reached small perfection and was still unable to hide his killing chi, Xiao Chen discovered that it could be used with the blue dragon cloud soaring art. Thus, he was not too disappointed. After resting for a while, Xiao Chen did not continue practicing. If he just practiced bitterly without thinking, even if he practiced for 100 years, there would not be any improvement. Furthermore, the environment in the mine was not suitable for bitter cultivation. If he relied on spirit stones to replenish his essence, it would weaken his sensitivity to the spiritual energy in the surroundings. Hiding his killing chi was the first step to succeeding in the clear wind chop. Xiao Chen was currently thinking about this problem. How could he hide his killing chi in the unfathomable cool breeze? When Xiao Chen returned to the stone room, he was surprised to discover that Mu Xinya was not on the stone bed. Could it be that she went to practice the saber like me? Why is she not back yet? Xiao Chen thought doubtfully. Never mind, I should not care about this. I should just take care of my own matters. Xiao Chen entered the bathroom and soaked comfortably in the pool for a long time before he came out. The next morning, Xiao Chen woke up from his deep sleep. He discovered that Mu Xinya had already finished washing up and was waiting for him to go out on patrol. Senior brother Yi, where did you go last night? It has been a long time since you came back, Mu Xinya said to Xiao Chen with a smile as the two of them went out. When Xiao Chen heard this, he was stunned. He did not expect Mu Xinya to take the initiative to ask this question. He smiled and said, I am not used to sleeping so early, so I went out to practice the saber. Mu Xinya smiled and said, let's go. Since I fought alongside you today, I can take a look at the martial techniques you have been practicing bitterly. Xiao Chen smiled and did not say anything. The boring and dry patrol began once again. The two of them had already patrolled the area once yesterday. When they went out again today, they were very familiar with the place. They were not as unfamiliar as yesterday. The first batch of miners they met was still the group led by Supervisor Li. When Supervisor Li saw the two of them, he wanted to come over and greet them. Xiao Chen waved his hand, indicating that there was no need to be so polite. Chapter 184. After staying here for a long time and seeing that nothing had happened, the two of them headed to another mining area. They did not dare to be careless along the way. If anything happened and the spirit-swallowing worm sprayed them, they would suffer. The morning passed just like that. The mine was frighteningly quiet. The 8th layer of the mine was much smaller than Xiao Chen had imagined. The densely packed paths on the map looked scary, but most of them were dead ends. There were not many places to patrol. This was probably why only 2 people were needed to patrol this area. Actually, in Xiao Chen's opinion, even if the 2 of them were not here, there would not be any problems. Out of the 10 martial saints guarding the headquarters, 2 of them would be able to do their job easily. In just one morning, the 2 of them had already patrolled the entire mine. They took out the dry rations they brought with them and started to rest. Mu Xinya's chatterbox did not stop for even a moment. The moment she sat down, she asked, Senior brother Yi, do you think there is a pattern to the appearance of these spirit-swallowing worms? When the 2 of them were patrolling earlier, they discovered some spirit-swallowing worms. However, before they could make a move, they had already fled. They could not do anything about it. Xiao Chen had not noticed the pattern. He could not help but ask, what did you see? Mu Xinya laughed, this lady has the magic eye. Of course, I can see it. Where do you think the spirit-swallowing worms are usually found? Are they places with miners or places without miners? Xiao Chen's eyes lit up. He seemed to have made a connection in his mind. It seemed like there were no spirit-swallowing worms at places with miners. The spirit-swallowing worms were not like corpses. When they came out, they moved slowly, giving the miners time to call for help. Then, they would spit out a few mouthfuls of poison, easily killing the miners. However, such a thing had never happened before. There was no precedent of the spirit-swallowing worms attacking the miners. However, what did this have to do with the pattern of the spirit-swallowing worms appearing? Mushinya had a pleased smile on her face. Did you think of something? Looking at your doubtful expression, you must not be able to figure out what is going on. Let me tell you. The spirit-swallowing worm naturally relies on swallowing spirit stone raw ores to survive. You didn't see it, so it can only mean that your work and rest schedule are different from theirs. Xiao Chen was suddenly enlightened. He immediately understood the key points and said, the two of us started to rest after the miners, which means that the spirit-swallowing worms would only come out when we were resting. Mushinya nodded. Actually, you can look at it from another angle. After the spirit-swallowing worms rest, the miners and us will start working. When the spirit-swallowing worms come out, we will start resting. Mushinya's words were just the reverse of Xiao Chen's words. On the surface, the meaning was the same. However, if one thought about it carefully, they would discover that the meaning was completely different. Xiao Chen was not stupid, and he soon figured out the key points. The miners and their working hours were not set randomly, but according to the activity patterns of the spirit-swallowing worms. It was to avoid the activities of the spirit-swallowing worm, but why? The spirit-swallowing worms were not very strong. If they could gather them together and catch them all in one fell swoop, wouldn't that be better? Yiwen had once said that the greatest enemy in the mine was not the corpses, but the spirit-swallowing worms that ate spirit stone raw ores to survive. Could it be that Yiwen did not speak the truth? Xiao Chen thought to himself, these insignificant spirit-swallowing worms can't be hiding something, right? Mushinya leaned over and said in a cheeky manner, Senior Brother Yi, do you think we should go out and earn some contribution points tonight? I guarantee that we can earn at least 100 points. All we need is one night. This should be the reason why Mushinya came back so late last night. When Xiao Chen heard her suggestion, he thought of something. However, he immediately rejected this idea. These are just your guesses. There is no evidence, so don't say it in the future. But Seeing that Xiao Chen did not believe her, Mushinya's adorable face could not help but turn anxious. Xiao Chen interrupted her, no buts. Let's spend this month in peace. I feel that it is not safe to stay here. It is best not to complicate matters. Hu Qi. An ear-piercing alarm rang out in the mine. The expressions of the two of them changed as they quickly stopped talking and rushed towards the source of the sound. Before they arrived, they ran into the escaping miners. The miners were staggering as they ran in a panic. It was very strange. Xiao Chen was startled. Low-grade corpses should not have such a strong deterrent force. To think that these miners would be so frightened. He quickly went to the supervisor and asked him about it. The supervisor's complexion was pale as he said, My two lords, let's run quickly. We do not know what we dug up this time, but 2 mutated corpses appeared. Half of our brothers died. 2 mutated corpses. Xiao Chen frowned and sank into deep thought. The so-called mutated corpses were the ones that Yiwen had spent a lot of effort to kill. 2 mutated corpses. What did they dig up to attract 2 mutated corpses? Could it be a superior grade spirit stone? No matter what, I have to check out the situation first. I cannot just listen to the words of these people. Let's not bother about these miners first. After such a big thing happened, it was unrealistic for them to continue mining. After he took out the map and asked the supervisor for the location of the incident, Xiao Chen immediately brought Mushinya to the location of the incident. He quickly rushed over and extended his spiritual sense to a radius of 200 meters around him. Stop! Xiao Chen, who was rushing forward quickly, suddenly stretched out his hand and signaled for Mushinya to stop. He looked at the map and found that they were only about 600 meters away from the location of the incident. To a martial saint, 600 meters would only take a few breaths of time. A conservative estimate of the mutated corpse's strength was that of an inferior-grade martial saint. Xiaochen did not dare to be careless. If he were to charge in recklessly, he might lose his life if he was not careful. He turned his divine sense into a thin thread and slowly slithered into it. After a while, Xiaochen saw the scene of the incident. The ground was a mess, and the corpses of the miners were everywhere. The hearts of the corpses had all been dug out. The ground was stained with blood. Xiaochen scanned the area with his spiritual sense, but to his surprise, he did not find any corpses. Strange, where did these man-eating corpses run off to? Xiaochen thought suspiciously. He used his spiritual sense to search the surroundings carefully, but he still did not find any corpses. After double-checking, Xiaochen brought Mu Xinya to the location of the incident. They started to search for the thing that the miners said they found. This was the first time she saw so many miners die. Mu Xinya's expression was somewhat unsightly. When Xiaochen saw the situation, he patted her shoulder and consoled her. Don't think too much, this kind of thing is unavoidable. Before they came, they all signed a life and death contract. If they died, their families would receive a large sum of compensation. To them, there is no regret. From the moment they signed the life and death contract, they had already thought of this. Mu Xinya's expression was still somewhat unsightly. She forced a smile and said, I know. Let's quickly search for the thing that they were talking about. The two of them started to search everywhere. Before they came, Xiaochen had already used his spiritual sense to scan the area many times. However, he did not find anything. Now that they were here personally, they started to search. However, they still could not find the thing that the supervisor was talking about. Could it be that the supervisor was lying? Or could it be that after the two corpses killed the miners, they took away the thing that they dug out? Compared to the latter, Xiaochen was more willing to believe the former. This was because if the latter was the case, it would mean that these two mutated corpses already had a simple level of intelligence. If that was the case, then it would be an extremely horrifying matter. A corpse with intelligence would be much harder to deal with than a corpse that only relied on its instincts to fight. If these two corpses continued to hide and cultivate in this mine for a long time, their cultivation might increase at a horrifying rate, becoming something like a corpse king. Just thinking about it made Xiaochen tremble in fear. Stop searching. It is already very obvious that the two corpses took away the thing. Xiaochen said slowly. Although he did not hope for this answer, the truth was already laid out in front of him. It was impossible for the supervisor to lie to him. This was because he had no way of walking out of this layer of the mine. If he lied to Xiaochen, he would be immediately punished after it was discovered, unless he was tired of living. After Xiaochen spoke, he quickly brought Mu Xinya back to the headquarters. After such a big matter happened, it was not something that the two of them could deal with. When he saw Yiwen at the headquarters, Xiaochen told him everything in detail. Yiwen frowned tightly and said, "Where are the miners that survived?" Xiaochen replied, "After such a big matter happened, I let them rest. Go to the dormitory and get the supervisor to see me." Yiwen turned around and instructed a person. Then he said to Xiaochen and Mu Xinya, "Accompany me to the location of the incident." After running back and forth, anyone would feel dissatisfied. However, Xiaochen could only endure it. He brought Yiwen back to the location of the incident. After they arrived, Yiwen started to inspect them carefully without saying a word. After a while, the person who Yiwen had instructed to bring the supervisor ran over with an anxious expression. "Elder Yi, we did not discover this group of people in the dormitory. Furthermore, the miners that were on break today, as well as the miners from other places, said that they did not see this group of people. I also looked around for them, but I could not find them. It was like this group of people disappeared." Xiaochen's heart trembled as he said hoarsely, "How can this be? How can they disappear? I and Mu Xinya clearly saw them." Furthermore, it was a large group of miners, Xiaochen thought suspiciously in his heart. Mu Xinya, who was at the side, also felt it was strange. She said, "That is not possible. We saw at least 20 miners along the way. Furthermore, the supervisor even spoke to us. How could they disappear? Yuan muttered to himself for a while before saying, "Don't bother with this matter. I will send someone to investigate. You all continue patrolling." Chapter 185. For the entire afternoon, Xiaochen was distracted. He could not understand how that group of miners disappeared. How could a group of living people just disappear like that? Furthermore, these people all had alarms in their hands. If they met with danger, they would sound the alarm immediately. That ear-piercing sound could be heard anywhere in the mine. Mu Xinya was also puzzled. "Senior brother Yi, what do you think is going on? This is too strange." Xiaochen smiled faintly. "Even someone as smart as you cannot figure it out." "How would I know?" When she heard Xiaochen's words, Mu Xinya revealed a smile. "Actually, I have an idea as well. It is impossible for these people to disappear. There are so many dead ends in the mine, you cannot even see your fingers if you stretch them out. If they just randomly chose a dead end to hide in, it would be very difficult to find them." Xiaochen shook his head and retorted, "That's impossible. Why would these people hide? They are all ordinary people. Without our protection, there is no way for them to survive in the dead ends. Even if there is no danger, they would starve to death without food." Mu Xinya said, "Then tell me, where did they go? Could it be that they are all hiding underground?" If there was something he could not figure out, he would put it aside for now. This was Xiaochen's usual way of doing things. Since he could not figure it out, he would not bother thinking about it. Let's not bother about it. Just leave it to Marshal Uncle Yi and the others to investigate. We should be careful and leave this place within a month. Xiaochen now regretted accepting this mission. The mine became increasingly strange. The uneasy feeling in his heart also became stronger. Xiaochen only wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. The following week was rather peaceful. There was no conclusion to what happened that day. The people that Yuan sent out searched the mine for a long time, but they could not find the missing miners. During the day, Xiaochen and Mu Xinya continued to patrol. Occasionally, they would run into corpses, but the two of them could easily deal with them. The two of them also became more coordinated. That night, Xiaochen continued to practice in a wide tunnel. He took out a few night illumination pearls from his universe ring and placed them around the tunnel. The dark tunnel immediately lit up. The night pearl was something that Xiaochen had obtained from the Jiang clan's hidden treasure pavilion in the past. When he was tidying up the universe ring the day before yesterday, he had discovered it by accident. It was a good time to place it here. A bright space was much better than pitch-black darkness. Xiaochen first practiced the 8 basic saber techniques. He could not fall behind in his comprehension of the basic saber techniques. After that, Xiaochen executed all the martial techniques he knew one by one. Rushing thunder saber technique, dragon seizing hand, flight on wings, astral swordplay. Regardless of whether he learned them himself or imitated them with the battle sage origin, he practiced them all. Only when he had exhausted all of his primal chi did he stop and rest for a while. Xiaochen took out an inferior grade spirit stone from the universe ring and absorbed it. His essence instantly recovered. Xiaochen got up and started to practice the clear wind chop. He had spent most of his time practicing the clear wind chop in the past few days. The coordination between the blue dragon cloud soaring art and the clear wind chop was getting better and better. Xiaochen was like a swimming dragon. When he flew in the air, the clear wind chop could be released from any angle. However, no matter how practiced he was, Xiaochen could not hide his killing chi. The instant the lunar shadow saber was drawn, the killing chi would automatically leak out. There was no way to control it. Xiaochen leaned against the wall of the tunnel helplessly. He was thinking about the problem of killing chi. The so-called killing chi referred to the tyrannical aura that would automatically form after a cultivator killed a certain number of people. Normally, these people would just need to exchange glances with others and their killing chi would automatically leak out, causing others to feel fear. When fighting, they would not be able to concentrate. Furthermore, there were some horrifying people who could control their killing chi freely. The killing chi that filled the air would condense into a line and turn into a spear or saber, piercing into a person's mind and injuring their spiritual sense, causing them to lose their combat prowess. However, such a state could only be achieved by those who used killing to prove their Tao. Lu Rue and Yiwen were obviously not people who used killing to prove their Tao. How did they do it? Shao Chen slowly got up and placed the lunar shadow saber to the side. Then, he used his bare hands to gesture in the air. At this moment, his killing chi automatically hid itself, not leaking out at all. Suddenly, Shao Chen understood. He knew why his killing chi appeared. When he held the lunar shadow saber, killing chi would unconsciously appear in his heart. After all, the ultimate purpose of this clear wind chop was to kill. Without killing chi, how could he execute it? When killing chi appeared, it would automatically come out. However, when he punched earlier, there was killing chi in his heart, but it did not come out. This was because he had simply separated his fists and legs into simple movements. Holding the lunar shadow saber in his hand, Shao Chen drew it with a huang dang sound. He kept thinking to himself, this is just an action. What I am doing now is just a mechanical action. I am just picking up the saber and drawing it. It is just like how I usually walk or eat. It is just a simple action. Don't think too much about it. Just like this, Shao Chen hypnotized himself and slowly executed the clear wind chop. The saber sliced through the air and the blue dragon cloud soaring art was executed at the same time. A cool breeze blew in the mine. Shao Chen's mind was clear and calm. Shwa! A sharp cold light flashed in the air. Shao Chen's figure paused in the air. He continued to execute the blue dragon cloud soaring art. His feet did not touch the ground. It was like he was riding the cool breeze as he sent out another 3 clear wind chop. In the cool breeze, the black lunar shadow saber was like a leaf dancing in the wind. It did not contain any killing chi, causing people to not feel any pressure. I finally succeeded. After Shao Chen landed on the ground, he said joyfully. He had executed a total of 4 clear wind chops earlier. All the killing chi was successfully hidden. So that was how it was. This was the so-called sudden inspiration. Usually, he could not figure out a problem. Suddenly, he had an epiphany, and everything became clear. Shao Chen thought in this manner. However, he did not know that if he did not have his usual accumulation and bitter training, how could he have this sudden inspiration? As long as he hypnotized himself, he could hide his killing chi. If even he was fooled, how could the enemy not be fooled? Shao Chen was very excited. Shao Chen continued to train bitterly. A cool breeze blew in the cave. Occasionally, the saber would spit out a cold light. It worked together with the blue dragon cloud soaring art. As it spun, it moved about unpredictably. Shao Chen practiced until his essence was exhausted. Only then did he stop. He sat on the ground and thought about what he had just learned. After a while, he put away the night pearl and headed back to the stone room. When Shao Chen passed by a spot where the miners were digging during the day, he slowly stopped. There were close to 10 spirit-swallowing bugs moving about at the spot. A zzz sound rang out incessantly. This was the sound of them chewing on the spirit stone raw ore. The spirit-swallowing bugs ate the spirit stone raw ore and lived underground. Logically speaking, they should be a great enemy of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. However, looking at the scene today, it seemed like the Heavenly Saber Pavilion was purposely raising these spirit-swallowing bugs. Shao Chen passed by this place every day. There were a few times when he could not help but kill them. This was a large pile of contribution points. After he killed all of them, he would have 50 contribution points. Who? Suddenly, a strong wind blew behind Shao Chen. A figure appeared behind him at lightning speed and gently patted his shoulder with his right hand. Shao Chen focused and drew the lunar shadow saber. Essence gathered on it and a blazing saber light formed. Chi! Just as the saber light was about to form, the figure flicked the lunar shadow saber with his finger. There was a ripple in the air and the saber was knocked back. Your reaction is not bad. You can draw your saber in a breath of time. Your basic saber techniques should have reached the medial perfection. Yuan's figure slowly appeared as he smiled gently at Xiaochen. When Xiaochen saw that the person who came was Yuan, he slowly let down his guard. He sheathed his saber and cupped his hands. Martial Uncle Yi, thank you for your kindness. Yuan smiled gently and looked at the spirit swallowing bugs in front of him. He said to Xiaochen, do you find it strange? There are so many spirit swallowing bugs, but I do not kill them all. Xiaochen nodded his head. This was indeed the doubt in his heart. If Yuan could tell him, that would be for the best. Let's go, I will bring you to a place. It is not a big deal, I will tell you later. After Yuan spoke, he led Xiaochen through the tunnels. They made many turns, and along the way, they even triggered some traps. Often, just as he thought it was a dead end, it would suddenly become clear again. Where is he bringing me? Xiaochen thought curiously. He originally thought that Yuan would bring him to the headquarters of this layer of the tunnels. He did not expect that to be the case. Hua la la. Suddenly, the melodious sound of flowing water came from the front. It was unknown what Yuan had triggered, but the wall in front of them moved aside. Who? An extremely cool breeze blew. A huge cave appeared in front of Xiaochen. It was more than 100 meters tall and a few thousand meters wide. This could no longer be described as a cave. It was like someone had used a mighty force to carve out a space. There was a surging underground river flowing violently. The sound of flowing water came from here. Suddenly, his field of vision became so wide that it caused his heart to tremble. He felt incomparably comfortable. What surprised Xiaochen even more was that it was not just Xiaochen and Yuan here. There were many other people from the Heavenly Saber Pavilion present. These people were all wearing black light armor. There was an indistinct light flowing through them. Every one of them had a monstrous killing chi spreading out. Even though Xiaochen was far away, he could feel this sharp killing chi. Even though he knew that this killing chi was not directed at him, it still made him feel like he was being stared at by an evil spirit. However, he still felt like he was being stared at by an evil spirit, causing him to tremble uncontrollably. As Xiaochen grasped his saber hilt, the killing intent in his heart was unconsciously drawn out. He wanted to draw his saber and kill the owner of this killing chi, leaving nothing behind. Relax, don't act rashly. These are the people from the Divine Saber Camp. They will not make a move on you. Just as Xiaochen could not endure it any longer, Yuan suddenly spoke. He placed his right hand on Xiaochen's shoulder and sent in strands of gentle essence. After Yuan sent in strands of gentle essence, the tyranny in Xiaochen's heart slowly calmed down. His body stopped trembling. However, Xiaochen was astonished in his heart. What happened earlier? Why did I release so much killing chi for no reason? Chapter 186. Yuan said indifferently, this is a baleful aura that is even more horrifying than killing chi. It can evoke the killing intent in your heart, causing you to sink into chaos. Xiaochen looked at the Divine Saber Camp members across the river in horror. He muttered to himself, how many lives did they take to form such a horrifying baleful aura? The Divine Saber Camp was the most elite force of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. What were they doing here? Was there something they wanted to protect? Why did Yuan bring me here? Xiaochen's mind was filled with doubts. There is no need to care about them. Nothing will happen to the river. I brought you here to get some fresh air. Don't overthink, let's go. Yuan dispelled Xiaochen's doubts. Yuan brought Xiaochen to a stone table by the river and stopped. Then, he took out a bottle of wine and 2 wine cups and placed them on the stone table. Golyulu. Yuan filled the 2 wine cups and handed one to Xiaochen. Then, he took a sip and said, let's sit. Let me ask you something. When did you join Qingyun Peak? How is Qingyun Peak's situation now? Xiaochen picked up the wine cup and drained it in one gulp. A cool breeze blew over the river, making him feel very cool. Xiaochen had guessed long ago that Yuan should be someone from Qingyun Peak. He was not surprised by his question. I have been here for almost 3 months. When I arrived, everyone from Qingyun Peak had already left. Only Lu Ryue and her brother were left. Xiaochen did not hide anything and answered honestly. Don't you know all this? When Yuan heard this, he revealed a bitter smile. He said, I have not gone out for 10 years already. I have only heard a little about them. So when I saw someone from Qingyun Peak coming to do a caretaker mission, I asked you to come to me. Not going out for 10 years. Could it be that Yuan had been staying underground for 10 years? This was too inconceivable. Xiaochen had only stayed here for a week and he could not take it anymore. It was hard to imagine what it would be like if he stayed here for 10 years. A surprised look appeared on Xiaochen's face as he asked, was it your idea for us to come to the 8th level of the mine? Yuan smiled faintly, that's right. Actually, you should thank me. If it were not for me, you would have been sent to the 20-odd floors. The terrain there is even lower. The environment there is much worse than mine. No wonder. Xiaochen had always felt that their missions were too easy. Usually, they were just going through the motions, and there was basically nothing to do. So this was the reason. By the way, have you found the 2 mutated corpses? Xiaochen suddenly thought of this matter. This was a good opportunity, he could ask Yuan about it. I already have some clues, but it's best if you don't ask. Yuan did not directly answer Xiaochen's question. He continued from where he left off, according to what you said, your master should be Lu Ryue, right? Seeing Xiaochen nod his head, Yuan smiled gently and muttered, she has not given up yet? Rumble. Just at this moment, there was a loud rumbling sound on the empty ground on the other side of the river. Xiaochen looked in that direction and discovered a huge rock shaking non-stop in the center of the empty ground on the other side of the river. The huge force caused the entire mountain wall to shake, and countless rocks fell from the top of their heads. Xiaochen had seen this huge rock earlier. However, he did not pay much attention to it at that time. He thought it was just an ordinary rock. After all, it was not strange to see rocks underground. However, at this moment, thick chains suddenly appeared on the huge rock. There was a saber stabbed into the ground in 8 different directions around the huge rock. The thick chains moved from the huge rock to the sabers. The huge rock shook non-stop, as though it would be lifted off the ground at any moment. However, the 8 sabers did not move at all. Occasionally, there would be a flash of light on the sabers. The light traveled along the chains to the huge rock. The huge rock that was lifted off the ground was instantly pressed down again. Rumble. After the huge rock was pressed down, it immediately flew up again. The chains shook non-stop. The huge rock seemed to be suppressing some kind of demon or monster. A berserk roar came from inside. The roar reverberated in the vast cave. Xiaochen stared at the 8 sabers and the chains. He was sure that he did not see the 8 sabers and chains earlier. Otherwise, he would not have ignored the huge rock. Xiaochen extended his spiritual sense. However, he could not feel the existence of any objects. Aside from the huge rock, he could not see any chains or sabers. What's going on? Am I seeing things? Xiaochen thought suspiciously. I can clearly see them. Why can't I sense them with my spiritual sense? That's not right. These 8 sabers are indeed not objects. They are the soul chains and soul holy weapons formed by the powerhouses before they died. Xiaochen thought in astonishment. Xiaochen finally understood what was going on. In some ancient books, it was recorded that before a sage died, they could merge their cultivation with their soul, turning it into a soul holy weapon and soul chain. What kind of enemy could cause 8 sages to turn into soul holy weapons and soul chains at the same time? What kind of person was so horrifying? What exactly is in there? Xiaochen asked Yuan. Yuan took a look and said, 1,000 years ago, a fiend king came to our heavenly saber pavilion to steal the spirit vein's origin. In the end, it was suppressed by the 8 supreme elders. The fiend king was actually suppressed by a fiend king. Xiaochen thought in astonishment, so there really are fiends in this world. The fiend race was different from the demons underground. They had existed in the Tianwu continent since the ancient era. According to rumors, in the immemorial era before the ancient era, there were tens of thousands of races. Humans were one of the weaker races. Due to some unknown reason, they obtained the final victory in the 100-race war of the immemorial era. In the following ancient era, the human race completely dominated the Tianwu continent. The other races either got wiped out or ran away. The human race spread throughout the Tianwu continent. After that, the few demonic calamities caused these races, which were already severely injured, to vanish from the long river of history. However, the fiend race was a rather special existence. They had existed for tens of thousands of years and had avoided a few demonic calamities without being wiped out. There had always been rumors that there was a large number of fiend race in the ancient desolate land of the Tianwu continent. From the looks of it now, the rumors should be true. Boom! A loud explosion, louder than any of the previous sounds, resounded in the spacious cave. A huge hairy hand stretched out from the bottom of the huge rock. A surging aura surged out from the ground and spread throughout the entire cave. It caused everyone to tremble in fear. Before this boundless aura, they felt like they were as insignificant as ants. The sharp fingertips of the huge hand flickered with a cold light. It stretched towards a saber on the ground and instantly grasped the saber hilt. Xiao Chen's expression changed. The blue dragon in his body felt threatened. It emitted a faint pressure and easily neutralized this surging aura. Xiao Chen muttered, "What is it trying to do? It has already been more than 1,000 years. How can it still have such a horrifying aura? Every month, during these few days, it will be more manic. There is no need to worry. The soul holy weapons and soul chains are not just for show. Furthermore, the divine saber camp is here. It will not be able to cause any trouble." Yuan saw that something was wrong with Xiao Chen's expression and quickly explained. Pu ci. Indeed, it was as Yuan said. The instant the huge claw touched the saber hilt, the soul chains crackled with electricity. The 8 soul holy weapons also lit up with resplendent electricity. Ah! A miserable shriek came from the bottom of the huge rock. The soul holy weapons and the soul chains were weapons that directly attacked the soul. No matter how strong the physical body was, it was impossible to dodge. Descend. One of the divine saber camp cultivators snorted coldly. His figure flashed in the air and he leaped onto the huge rock. He stomped heavily on it and immediately pushed the fiend king underground back. Who? The 8 soul holy weapons started to spin rapidly. The soul chains wrapped around the blade started to contract. Endless miserable cries came from the ground. After a long time, the miserable shrieks stopped. The 8 soul holy weapons and the soul chains disappeared and the cave returned to peace. Yuan got up and smiled at Xiao Chen. "Let's go. We have watched the show and gotten some fresh air. It should not be too boring." Xiao Chen nodded his head. However, he felt like he had forgotten something. Suddenly, he was startled and said, "Wait a moment. You have not told me why we cannot kill those spirit-swallowing worms." Yuan smiled casually. "It is not that we cannot kill them. It is just that we cannot kill them too ruthlessly. If it were not for these spirit-swallowing worms, this Lingyun Mountain spirit vein would have been dug dry in the past 10,000 years. After the spirit-swallowing worms consume the spirit stone raw ore, the spirit core that they produce is the best nourishment for the spirit vein's origin. If we kill them all, the spirit vein's origin will dry up. The spirit vein's origin was the source of the spirit stone raw ore. If the spirit vein's origin dried up, the spirit vein would no longer produce spirit stones." Xiao Chen understood this principle. However, he did not expect that the nourishment for the spirit vein's origin would be the spirit-swallowing worm's inner cores. "That's not right. Why did you say that the spirit-swallowing worms are the greatest enemy of the spirit vein?" Yuan explained, "We cannot have too many of them. If they consume all the spirit stone raw ore, what are we going to dig for? Hence, we have to maintain a balance. We have to kill a batch every now and then. I said this to give you a reason to kill the spirit-swallowing worms." After all, you cannot kill that many spirit-swallowing worms by yourself. The two of them started to walk back. Along the way, Yuan asked about the current situation of Qingyun Peak. Xiaochen told him everything he knew in detail. When Yuan heard about the Qingyun Peak that had declined beyond recognition, he occasionally sighed. He seemed extremely sorrowful. When they returned to the stone room, it was the same as the previous few nights. Mu Xinya was nowhere to be found. Xiaochen was already used to it and did not pay much attention to it. Hey! After Xiaochen finished bathing, he passed by Mu Xinya's stone bed. From the corner of his eye, he saw Mu Xinya's Gangyu Peak identity token and the Hall of Contributions mission token under her pillow. The identity token and the mission token were not taken away. Xiaochen walked forward and flipped them out. It was indeed Mu Xinya's Gangyu Peak identity token. The front had the words Gangyu written on it and the back had the words Mu Xinya written on it. Chapter 187. What is she trying to do? By placing the identity token here, she would be able to hide her position on the map. Could it be that she has some ulterior motive? For the past week, Xiaochen had not seen Mu Xinya's figure every night when he returned. Although he felt it was strange, he did not pay it much attention. Everyone had their own secrets, he could not be bothered to pry. It was just like him, he would go out to practice his saber for a long time every night before returning. However, if the identity token and the mission token were placed here, the nature of the matter would change. It was clear that she was trying to hide something from others. Xiao Chen's mind worked very quickly. I have to figure this out since I will be staying with her for a long time. Otherwise, if she has some ulterior motive and implicates me, I will be done for. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen extended out his spiritual sense and searched for Mu Xinya's figure within the mine. After scanning the cave a few times with his spiritual sense, he did not find anything. Xiao Chen expanded the range of his spiritual sense. After a while, he finally found Mu Xinya in a dead end. In front of Mu Xinya, there was a tall and stout man. He was close to 2 meters tall. Xiao Chen controlled his spiritual sense and carefully circled around. When he saw this person's appearance, he could not help but say, supervisorly, how did Mu Xinya meet him? The two of them spoke very quickly. However, Xiao Chen had never heard this language before. He could not understand what they were discussing. In the end, the two of them seemed to be arguing. Mu Xinya's expression became very impatient. Although Xiao Chen could not understand what the two of them were saying, from their expressions, Xiao Chen could vaguely deduce their relationship. They did not have a master-servant relationship, they seemed to be bargaining. Supervisor Li was not satisfied with the price that Mu Xinya offered, he thought it was too low. Mu Xinya was very dissatisfied with this. From her expression, it seemed like she was scolding him for going back on his word. After a while, Mu Xinya and Supervisor Li separated and rushed towards the stone room. Xiao Chen quickly withdrew his spiritual sense and placed Mu Xinya's identity token back in its original place. Then, he lay down on his bed and pretended to sleep. The next day, in the mine, boom! Xiao Chen stabbed his saber into the heart of one of the corpses. Mu Xinya quickly dodged to the back. Her 2 sabers crisscrossed in the air and chopped off the head of the corpse. Who? Xiao Chen drew his saber and retreated, continuing to attract the attention of the corpse. Mu Xinya followed up from behind, and with a flash of saber light, she chopped off the arms of the corpse. Not long after, the low-level dried corpse died at the hands of the two of them. It was cut into 8 pieces, and it couldn't be more dead. Senior Brother Yi, this battle only took 5 minutes. Our cooperation is getting better, Mu Xinya smiled as she looked at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and didn't say anything. What happened last night had left a shadow in his heart. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen could only secretly be vigilant and pretend that nothing had happened. He was afraid of alerting the enemy. Be careful. Xiao Chen's expression suddenly changed. He rushed forward and punched at Mu Xinya. The wind from his fist brushed past Mu Xinya's face and struck a corpse behind her. It was unknown when this corpse had come out of the ground. It took advantage of the moment when the two of them were distracted to pounce at Mu Xinya. From the time Xiao Chen said, "Be careful," to the time he punched the head of the corpse, only a breath of time had passed. Xiao Chen's physical body was incredibly hard. In a moment of desperation, he punched with all his might and smashed the head of the corpse into mush. Mu Xinya's reaction was extremely fast. She immediately turned around and two saber lights appeared on her two sabers, chopping off half of the corpse. It was originally a low-level corpse. After the two of them reacted, they quickly destroyed it. With the precedent set, no one dared to be careless. They started to check carefully and only relaxed after they confirmed it was safe. Mu Xinya looked at Xiao Chen and smiled gratefully. "Senior brother Yi, you saved me again. I really don't know what to say." Xiao Chen waved his hand. "I'll say it again. There is still a long way to go. Who knows? Who knows, I might be saved by you in the next moment." Mu Xinya smiled. "Senior brother Yi, I like what you said. In that case, I will work harder and find an opportunity to return this favor to senior brother Yi." At this moment, Mu Xinya's expression was innocent and romantic. She was like a cute girl next door. Xiao Chen was unable to connect her with the girl who had been spying with Supervisor Li the day before. The two of them continued their patrol. When they arrived at where Supervisor Li was, Xiao Chen purposely lingered there for a while. Supervisor Li acted as usual. He got up and put down his work. He said to the two of them, "Greetings to the two little lords." Xiao Chen used his spiritual sense to scan Supervisor Li's body. He still could not feel any martial spirit in his body. He was completely an ordinary person. Xiao Chen could not help but feel disappointed. There was clearly something wrong with this Supervisor Li. The color of his eyes was much brighter than that of a regular miner. If it was in the past, Xiao Chen could have thought that he was more optimistic, unlike the other miners who were numb. However, after seeing what happened yesterday, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. However, he could not find anything wrong with Supervisor Li. No matter how he looked at it, he was just an ordinary person who did manual labor. This little one is going to work. The two little lords, please continue with your work. Supervisor Li bowed and took his leave. In the instant that Mu Xinya was not paying attention, Xiao Chen suddenly used his dexterity and struck one of the people pushing the mining cart. That person instantly lost his balance and the mining cart suddenly flipped over, pressing down on Supervisor Li. Rumble. The spirit stone raw ore on the cart all rolled out. The cart floated up and pressed down on Supervisor Li's body. The surrounding miners quickly went over to pull Supervisor Li out. "What's going on?" Mu Xinya turned around and asked suspiciously. "Nothing, it's just an ordinary accident. Let's go." Xiao Chen sighed in his heart. Supervisor Li's performance was like that of an ordinary person. When faced with a sudden attack, he did not show any extraordinary side to him. In the headquarters of the 8th layer of the mine, a cultivator investigating the missing miners said to Yi Wen, "Elder Yi, we still have not found that group of miners. Furthermore, a few miners from this layer have been disappearing every day. However, because it is not a large-scale disappearance, there is no panic." Yi Wen said indifferently, "Continue investigating. Tally up the total number of people disappearing and report it to me every day." The days in the mine passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, another week had passed. Xiao Chen had already been here for half a month. Xiao Chen's daily activities also became more regular. During the day, he would patrol. At night, he would consolidate his saber techniques and practice the clear wind chop. The clear wind chop had already stabilized at the small perfection. When Xiao Chen drew his saber, he could perfectly hide his killing chi in the cool breeze. It would not leak out at all. He was steadily advancing towards the middle perfection. Aside from being a little boring, the days were rather peaceful. The only flaw was that he could not cultivate. Before he came here, his Purple Thunder Divine Incantation had already reached the consummation of the 3rd layer. Originally, Xiao Chen was prepared to break through to the Purple Thunder Divine Incantation's 4th layer this month, raising the might of his Purple Thunder True Fire by another layer. After that, he could truly refine his own magic treasure. From the looks of it, he could only give up on that and wait until he got out of here. On this particular day, Xiao Chen and Mu Xinya were preparing to patrol as per usual. However, they did not expect Yuan to bring an unexpected person over. "This is Ma Chen, you should have met him before. Something unexpected happened to him during his mission. He is here to continue his mission," Yuan said as he pointed at the person behind him. Ma Chen cupped his hands towards the two of them and said, "We meet again." Back then, before the group entered the heaven viewing platform, Ma Chen had told them about his experiences in carrying out missions. Thus, Xiao Chen had a rather deep impression of him. However, what exactly happened to him? Why was he sent here from the heaven viewing platform? Where are the others? Why is he here alone? Xiao Chen's heart was filled with doubts. After Yuan left, before Xiao Chen could say anything, Mu Xinya asked impatiently, "Senior brother Ma, what exactly happened to you? Where are the other senior brothers?" Ma Chen revealed an expression of lingering fear as he said, "They are all dead. They dug out a superior grade spirit stone in the 28th layer, and a corpse king appeared. The few of us happened to pass by that place. That corpse king had been beside the superior grade spirit stone for an unknown number of years. Unexpectedly, it still knows the martial techniques it used when it was alive. Furthermore, its spiritual intelligence is very high. Superior grade spirit stone." Xiao Chen and Mu Xinya were astonished. A superior grade spirit stone appeared in the Great Chu Nation's spirit vein's origin. This was very surprising. After the ancient era, the spiritual energy in the Tianwu continent became increasingly sparse. Even the Great Jin Nation, which had the densest spiritual energy, was a far cry from that era. As for the other four nations, their spiritual energy was even more sparse. It was already a pleasant surprise for a medial grade spirit stone to appear in a spirit vein. They did not expect to find a superior grade spirit stone raw or in the heavenly saber pavilion spirit vein. The value of a superior grade spirit stone was equivalent to 1,000 medial grade spirit stones. However, if one really wanted to exchange for it, no one would be willing to do so. This was because superior grade spirit stones were too rare. The vast and pure essence it contained was very attractive even to martial kings and martial monarchs. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation, if he could find a suitable cultivation technique and absorb a superior grade spirit stone, he could immediately advance to martial saint. Furthermore, there would not be any side effects. He would not have to worry about it affecting his future cultivation. Recollecting his thoughts, Xiao Chen continued to ask, "What happened after that? Did you manage to snatch the superior grade spirit stone raw or from the corpse king? Did you kill the corpse king?" Ma Chen replied, "The corpse king's cultivation was close to that of a martial monarch. Furthermore, its body was as tough as steel. Regular sabers and swords would not be able to injure it at all. We sent out 10 peak bladesmen from the divine saber camp, but it still managed to escape in the end. However, we managed to obtain the superior grade spirit stone raw ore." Xiao Chen and Ma Chen did not notice a strange expression flash on Mu Xinya's face when she heard that the corpse king was not dead. Ma Chen continued, "I'm really envious of the two of you. The tunnels of the 8th level are famous for being peaceful, and there have never been any major incidents. I don't know how you two ended up here, but something like this has never happened before." Chapter 188. Xiao Chen was now truly thankful to Yuan. If it were not for Yuan, he would have been one of the cultivators who met the corpse king. Who knows, he might have already become a corpse. Nothing much changed in the following days. Xiao Chen continued to patrol during the day and practice his saber at night. However, now that the two of them had become three, the days were not as boring as usual, and the three of them talked a lot more. Mu Xinya still went out for a long period of time every day. Every now and then, she would meet with Supervisor Li. However, Xiao Chen still could not understand what the two of them were saying. He could only keep his guard up, there was nothing he could do. Schwa. In a dead passage, Xiao Chen was in the air. Before he drew his saber, a cool breeze blew in the air. After the lunar shadow saber was drawn, a faint saber light flashed in the cool breeze. After Xiao Chen landed on the ground, a happy expression appeared on his face. He had finally mastered the second stage of the clear wind chop. The clear wind chop had a total of 3 stages. The first stage was to hide one's killing chi, eliminating one's killing intent so that others would not be able to quickly sense the timing of the move. Clear wind chop, which came first, the clear wind or the chop? If the clear wind came first and the saber came after, then it should definitely be the clear wind before the chop. However, if Xiao Chen did not draw his saber and create the air currents, how could there be a cool breeze? Therefore, the second stage of the clear wind chop was to practice until there was a clear wind before there was a chop. After working hard for more than half a month, Xiao Chen finally completed the second stage. Xiao Chen was about to break through to the third stage of the clear wind chop, which was the breakthrough to the great success realm. Only the clear wind could be seen, but not the saber. If Xiao Chen could practice it to the point where he could completely hide the saber in the cool wind, preventing the enemy from discovering the direction of the saber, then he would have reached great perfection in the clear wind chop. I have finally mastered it. It seems my talent is quite good. In just half a month's time, I was able to master the clear wind chop to the middle stage. Who knows, I might be able to master it before the end of the month, Xiao Chen said happily. He continued to practice for a while. As usual, Xiao Chen practiced until his primordial qi was exhausted. Only then did he start to walk towards the stone room. Young Lord Yi. A faintly discernible voice sounded. This voice was very familiar to Xiao Chen. Usually, when the miners and supervisors saw Xiao Chen, they would greet him like this. He turned around and saw that it was indeed one of the supervisors he had seen before. After standing guard in the pitch-black tunnel for a long time, Xiao Chen stopped and asked, "Supervisor Zhao, how did you find me?" Supervisor Zhao said weakly, "I have been wanting to look for little sir for some time now. My miners heard that little sir often goes out to practice his saber at night, so I waited here." Xiao Chen nodded. It was no secret that he came out to practice at night. "Why are you looking for me? Did you run into a mummy?" Supervisor Zhao's face had not seen the sun for a long time. After he washed it, it was very pale. Coupled with his numb eyes, he looked very miserable. "No, recently, there have been brothers disappearing mysteriously. At first, I did not pay much attention to it. This is because it is normal for people to disappear from time to time in the mine. However, after I asked the other supervisors, I discovered that there were people disappearing from their places as well. They really disappeared. In the past, even if they disappeared, we could still find their corpses. However, this time, we could not even find their corpses." Xiao Chen frowned slightly. From Supervisor Zhao's words, it was clear that the disappearances were premeditated. Someone was behind all this. Every supervisor had 1 or 2 people disappearing. The number did not seem large. However, when added together, it was quite horrifying. There were a total of 20 supervisors in the mine. Each supervisor led more than 100 miners. Every now and then, 1 or 2 would disappear. In total, there were probably more than 100 people. Who was it that made these miners disappear without a trace? Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and said to Supervisor Zhao, "I understand the situation now. I will speak to Elder Yi tomorrow." Supervisor Zhao hesitated for a while. His expression seemed like he was struggling with something. Finally, he made up his mind and said, "Little Lord Yi, we have a few brothers who will be reaching the end of their 5-year term at the end of this month. Now that something like this happened, they are all anxious. If they want to leave early, they can take less money." When Xiao Chen heard this, he revealed a difficult expression. He said, "There has never been such a precedent before. Furthermore, this matter is not under my jurisdiction. My words do not have any effect." Supervisor Zhao said anxiously, "Little Lord Yi, you are a good person. We all know that. In the past, the caretakers did not treat us miners as humans. Not only did they mock us coldly, sometimes, they even moved us. You have been here for so long, but you have never given us a meaningful glance. Everyone knows this. Xiao Chen had heard Ma Chen mention this before. In the past, when the Heavenly Saber Pavilion disciples took on this mission, many of them could not stand the boring life in the mine. They would vent their anger on the miners. This was a very common thing. Xiao Chen revealed a bitter smile. How could a normal person hide so deeply? Xiao Chen withdrew his spiritual sense and shook his head. He could not figure out what was going on. After Xiao Chen left, Supervisor Li tossed away the ore in his hand. His gaze seemed to penetrate the wall as he watched Xiao Chen leave. A murderous intent appeared in his eyes. When Xiao Chen arrived at the headquarters of this lair, he coincidentally met Yuan. Xiao Chen quickly went forward and told Yuan everything that he found out today. After that, he also mentioned Supervisor Zhao's request. After Yuan heard it, he said indifferently, I got it. You can go back first. When Xiao Chen saw that Yuan did not seem to mind, he said worriedly, Marshal Uncle Yi, those people's 5-year term is almost up anyway. Reducing their pay and letting those miners go should not be a problem. Yuan seemed to be very busy and was already preparing to leave. When he heard what Xiao Chen said, he stopped and said, You are only looking at the problem from your point of view. There is nothing wrong with 50 miners leaving. After all, their term is almost up. However, have you thought about it? There are more than 2,000 miners in the tunnels. At this moment, they are already starting to feel uneasy. If a large number of miners were to leave at this moment, have you thought about what would happen? If a large number of miners were to leave at this moment, it would definitely incite the other miners to panic. When that happened, it would be impossible to resolve the situation. Xiao Chen instantly thought of what would happen. Although this was logical, Xiao Chen felt that something was wrong. You can go. I know what you are talking about. I will deal with it in 2 days, Yuan consoled Xiao Chen when he saw him remain silent. Xiao Chen thought for a while before saying, Marshal Uncle Yi, don't go yet. I still have something to report. After thinking for a long time, although there was no evidence, Xiao Chen still decided to tell Yuan about Mu Xinya and Supervisor Li's strange behavior. After Yuan heard it, his expression did not change. He said, We are all from the same sect. If you do not have any evidence, don't make a report. Xiao Chen was unconvinced. Marshal Uncle Yi, Yuan interrupted him, there is no need for you to say anything else. Go back quickly. If you do not have any evidence and make such a report again, I will not be polite. That night, in a dead tunnel on the 8th layer of the tunnels, Supervisor Li said to Mu Xinya, the fellow who came down with you seems to have sensed something. He came to test me again today. Mu Xinya was not surprised. It's fine, he will not be able to find any evidence. Furthermore, he is not a busybody. Supervisor Li was still a little worried. Should we silence him? I am not ready yet. If this fellow spoils our plans, it will be troublesome. Mu Xinya shook her head, there is no need. We can make a move tomorrow. When Supervisor Li heard this, his expression changed. He said in astonishment, make a move tomorrow? That is too rushed. The longer I refine that thing, the stronger it will be. It should be safer at the end of the month. Chapter 189. Mu Xinya said indifferently, in addition to the 2 mutated corpse kings from before and the newly discovered corpse king, there are 3 corpse kings. Each corpse king has the strength of a martial monarch. We should be able to succeed. According to the agreement, you have to increase my remuneration by half. I have lived here for 10 years, living a life that is neither human nor ghost. I have had enough. Supervisor Li revealed an expression of resentment as he spoke. Mu Xinya frowned slightly, my race has prepared this plan for over 100 years. What is your 10 years' worth of effort? At the last moment, you are going back on your word. You are too untrustworthy. Supervisor Li chuckled, whatever you say, I will definitely eat you up. At most, we will just break up. A cold killing intent flashed in Mu Xinya's eyes. Her aura suddenly soared, as though she was going to make a move at any moment. Supervisor Li smiled faintly and welcomed her without fear. Finally, Mu Xinya compromised. She snorted coldly, as you wish. I will increase your medial grade spirit stones to 3,000. In another tunnel, Xiaochen felt uneasy as he practiced his saber randomly. The night pearls lit up the tunnel like it was daytime. A strong wind blew and saber lights flickered. Occasionally, there would be explosive shouts coming from the air. Xiaochen casually practiced a set of saber techniques. When his aura reached its peak, he shouted and swung the lunar shadow saber. The saber blade gave off a glow as it stabbed into the stone wall. Shwa! Shwa! Black rocks fell off the wall continuously. The entire blade of the lunar shadow saber, including the hilt, was completely embedded into the wall. It was clear how angry he was. He had gone through a lot of trouble to obtain this information. He had not thought of receiving any rewards, he only hoped that the other party would take note of it. Who knew that Yuan would accuse him of snitching? This made him very depressed. Xiaochen took a few deep breaths before he slowly calmed down. It looks like there is no hope for Supervisor Zhao. I do not know how to face him tomorrow. Never mind, things will eventually sort themselves out, Xiaochen sighed to himself. I just have to guarantee that nothing big will happen before the end of the month. He's just a little girl and an ordinary miner. If I'm careful, I don't believe that he can cause any big waves. The next day, early in the morning, Xiaochen acted as usual, acting as though nothing had happened. He went out to patrol with Ma Cheng and Mu Xinya. The morning passed just like that. It was so peaceful that there were no waves, which made people feel uncomfortable. Not to mention the dried corpses, even the spirit-swallowing worms that could be seen occasionally had disappeared without a trace. The mine was eerily quiet. Just when Xiaochen thought he was imagining things, Ma Cheng suddenly said, "What's going on today? I feel like something is wrong." Xiaochen looked at him and said in surprise, "Do you have this feeling too?" "I thought I was the only one who felt that way." Ma Cheng had completed many missions in this tunnel. His intuition should be trustworthy. Xiaochen couldn't help but feel nervous. During the patrol in the afternoon, Xiaochen paid 120% of his attention. Aside from paying attention to his surroundings, he also placed most of his attention on Mu Xinya. If there were any accidents, it would definitely be related to Mu Xinya. When the time came, he just had to keep an eye on her. If anything happened, he would be able to salvage the situation. Xiaochen came to a fork that he passed frequently. He ignored the two dead ends and headed for the left tunnel with the miner's lamp. "Little Lord Yi, is that you?" Xiaochen had not gone far when he heard a weak voice coming from the dead-end tunnel behind him. He quickly stopped and looked towards one of the tunnels. He sent out his spiritual sense and saw the appearance of the person who spoke. Xiaochen was startled. It was the supervisor who had been missing for close to half a month. "Who is inside?" Ma Cheng asked cautiously. Xiaochen replied, "It is the supervisor Wang that I mentioned to you previously. He has been missing for half a month already. I did not expect him to suddenly appear here." "Little Lord Yi, is that you?" That weak voice drifted over once again. It sounded like it was squeezed out from between clenched teeth. It caused one's scalp to go numb and felt very uncomfortable. Ma Cheng had already drawn his saber. His entire body was tense and he was on high alert. He said to Xiaochen, "Junior brother Yi, do you want to go over and take a look?" Xiaochen muttered to himself for a while, pretending to be thinking. In reality, he was using his spiritual sense to observe the supervisor. He discovered that aside from the fact that the supervisor's life force was very weak, there was nothing wrong with him. Even so, this person had been missing for close to half a month. Now that he suddenly appeared, it was hard to avoid feeling suspicious. He did not dare to be careless. "Let's go over and take a look." "Just stay alert." Xiaochen placed his right hand on the hilt of the lunar shadow saber and led Ma Cheng towards the dead-end tunnel. When they got close, they discovered that Supervisor Wang was lying on the ground. He was leaning weakly against the wall, groaning weakly. Seeing such a situation, Xiaochen relaxed his guard. Xiaochen took out a bottle of water and handed it to this person. Supervisor Wang revealed an expression of joy as he stretched his hand out to receive the bottle. Hu Qi. King Chang. However, Supervisor Wang had only extended his hand halfway. Before Xiaochen felt anything was wrong, Ma Cheng, who was beside him, hacked down with his saber. This saber tore through the air. It was very fast. There was no way to dodge. When the sharp blade struck Supervisor Wang's hand, something strange happened. Supervisor Wang's hand was not chopped off. Instead, it emitted a clanging sound that sounded like metal colliding with metal. Xiao Chen's expression changed and he quickly retreated far away. Supervisor Wang bounced up from the ground and quickly stood up. He completely tore off his disguise and a rotten smell came from his body. His clothes were torn apart, revealing the hard black skin underneath. How did you discover that something was wrong? Xiao Chen asked as he stood together with Ma Cheng. Ma Cheng quickly replied, his 5 fingers were completely black. They had lost the luster of a human. So that's how it is. Xiao Chen looked at Supervisor Wang in astonishment. He did not expect that after not seeing him for half a month, Supervisor Wang had actually turned into a dried corpse. G.A. 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 A strange laughter came from Supervisor Wang's mouth. He said clearly, I originally wanted to give you a surprise. Who knew that you would discover it in advance? Ma Cheng's complexion was somewhat pale as he said in a soft voice, something is wrong. Why does he still have his own thoughts? After he was infected with the corpse poison, he should have turned into a walking corpse. Xiao Chen frowned, he could not guess what was going on. It was not like it had never happened before for a living person to turn into a dried corpse. When an ordinary person was infected with the corpse poison, they would turn into a dried corpse. However, those were just walking corpses. They did not have much combat prowess. Even an ordinary person could easily dodge them. Supervisor Wang laughed strangely again. Do you think I am someone that those walking corpses can compare to? I am the corpse monarch, someone who uses corpses to prove my Tao. I am the monarch of the ancient corpses. Who? Supervisor Wang waved his hands in the air and a golden cloak appeared from nowhere. Then, he tied it around his body. Then, he took out a golden crown and wore it on his head. For a corpse that was as thin as firewood to be wearing such a set of clothing, it was incomparably strange. Who cares what you are? I will chop you to death with one strike. Mountain-splitting chop. Ma Cheng snorted coldly and leaped into the air. His figure flashed into the air. He had already practiced this mountain-splitting chop to great perfection. An indistinct image of a lonely mountain appeared above his head. It seemed like it had the force of 10,000 kilograms as it descended with a majestic aura. Supervisor Wang, or rather, the corpse sovereign. The corpse sovereign laughed coldly and pointed at the ground. The ground exploded with a bang, and a mummy burst out from the ground, leaping towards Ma Cheng. Chop! When Ma Cheng saw the corpse bearing its fangs and claws in the air, a look of disdain flashed in his eyes. Ma Cheng shouted and swung his saber, infused with the force of 10,000 kilograms, at the corpse. Suddenly, Xiao Chen felt that something was wrong. His gaze was like lightning as he looked at the corpse in the air. A purple light flashed in his eyes and he saw the situation of the corpse clearly. Countless streams of black light flowed through the meridians of the corpse's body. In the dantian, there was a black spiral of qi that spun like a gale. Xiao Chen was astonished. This corpse was clearly a ticking time bomb. The flowing black qi was the fuse. As long as it was broken, it would explode immediately. Furthermore, the might of this attack was not small. If Ma Cheng was caught off guard, he would definitely suffer. Blue Dragon Tail Whip. Xiao Chen shouted, and a boundless amount of essence flowed to his right foot. His right foot pushed off the ground, and the ground started to tremble slightly. Suddenly, a blue dragon image wrapped around Xiao Chen's body. It was as though he had turned into a dragon. The dragon tail whipped in the air, creating an intense ripple and space started to tremble. In the next instant, Xiao Chen's figure moved in an arc in the air. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Ma Cheng. The 3 flowing cloud images made the first move. The scabbard of the saber struck the corpse's body gently, creating an intense wave on the surface of the sea. The corpse was thrown towards the corpse monarch on the ground. This was the first time Shao Chen used the high-level technique of the blue dragon cloud soaring art. This was the true might of a heaven-ranked movement technique. After he used it, his speed instantly reached its peak. Not only did Ma Cheng not react, but the corpse monarch on the ground also did not react. Only when the corpse flew into the air did the corpse monarch on the ground react. A strange smile appeared on his skinny face as he flicked his finger. Boom! The corpse directly exploded in the air with a loud bang. It immediately shattered into pieces. The corpse turned into a black chi flow and spread out in all directions. When the energy condensed from Ma Cheng's mountain-splitting chop met with this chi flow, it was actually evenly matched. Ma Cheng somersaulted backwards and landed firmly on the ground. Traceless flowing water. Shao Chen was in the air. He had a relaxed expression as he executed the 3 flowing cloud images. The scabbard of the saber streaked across in front of him. It carried a gentle energy like flowing water, sweeping away the black chi flow without a trace. When the black chi flow scattered, Shao Chen and Ma Cheng stood together. They looked at the corpse monarch in front of them cautiously. Although it called itself a monarch, it did not have the strength of a martial monarch. It was equivalent to a human martial king. Even so, a martial king was not something the 2 of them could deal with. Furthermore, this corpse monster was extremely strange. It was much stronger than a regular martial king. Chapter 190. Since you are able to receive 1 move from me and not die, I will let you off. G.A. 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 The corpse monarch laughed strangely. He waved his right hand and corpses poured out of the ground. When one looked carefully, these corpses were the missing miners. Someone had used a special method to refine these corpses. They were much stronger than regular corpses. The corpse monarch laughed strangely. Take your time, I still have things to do. G.A. 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 The corpse monarch's body slowly merged into the ground and soon disappeared without a trace. However, the ground was still as flat as before. There were no cracks at all. Earth evasion technique? Seeing the method the corpse monarch used to escape, Shao Chen immediately thought of the earth evasion technique recorded in the Compendium of Cultivation. The scene in front of him was exactly the same as the earth evasion technique. However, there was no time for him to think about it. The surrounding corpses were already rushing over. The narrow tunnel was filled with hundreds of corpses. Pooh! 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 Shao Chen brandished the scabbard in his hand, making it airtight. His figure turned into flowing water, blocking all the corpses rushing at him. Occasionally, he would even help Ma Chen. Suddenly, Shao Chen thought of something. He turned to Ma Chen and asked, "Senior brother Ma, did you see junior sister Mu?" Ma Chen was stunned. Then, he asked in a strange tone, "That's right, where did junior sister Mu go? When did she leave?" Damn it, Shao Chen cursed in his heart. After guarding her for so long, in the end, she still managed to leave this place silently. Mu Xinya must have taken the opportunity to leave when the 2 of them were distracted by Supervisor Wang. Ma Cheng kicked one of the dried corpses away and dodged the attack of the other dried corpse. Then, he slashed his saber at the other dried corpse's body, creating a clanging sound. It sounded like metal clashing against metal. The dried corpse was pushed back but was unable to be split into 2. "Junior brother Yi, what should we do? These corpses seem to be invulnerable. Furthermore, there are too many of them. I'm afraid we cannot think of a solution. The situation is not good," Ma Chen said anxiously. Shao Chen muttered to himself in silence, carefully thinking of countermeasures. The speed and strength of these corpses were only that of an ordinary human martial grand master. If that was all, with Ma Cheng's cultivation, he would be able to easily kill his way out. In addition, Shao Chen would definitely be able to wipe out this group of corpses. However, the most troublesome thing was that the skin of these dried corpses was as tough as steel. When the blade struck them, it could only leave a shallow mark. What was even more troublesome was that these dried corpses did not feel any pain at all. If you can't repel him, he will ignore the wounds on his body and continue to attack you. It's very troublesome. Xiao Qin could easily leave by himself. However, he did not want to expose too many of his trump cards in front of Ma Cheng. After all, he had not interacted much with Ma Cheng. It was better to be on guard. Let's rush out, senior brother Ma. Don't hide anymore. Xiao Qin said calmly. He did not believe that Ma Cheng, who had completed so many missions in the tunnels and escaped unscathed, did not have any trump cards. There was only one reason why Ma Cheng did not want to use his trump cards. He wanted to preserve his strength and force Xiao Qin to make a move. Ma Cheng revealed an embarrassed expression. He smiled bitterly and said, I am really not hiding anything. It is just that I am not confident. I will need senior brother Yi to help me later. Otherwise, all my efforts will be wasted. Bang! 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 Xiao Qin held his saber in his left hand and punched 3 times with his right hand. He easily knocked back 3 corpses that pounced at him. His body had been tempered by the 7-leaf flower and cultivated bitterly. Even if he did not use his essence and just relied on the strength of his physical body, he would have more than 1,000 kilograms of force. When these corpses were struck by his punch, a slight crack appeared on their bronze-like skin. When they were knocked back, they knocked the corpses behind them to the ground. When Ma Cheng, who was at the side, saw this scene, he was astonished. He could not tell that an inferior-grade martial grand master like Xiao Qin actually had such strength. I wonder if senior brother Ma has any good moves to break out of this encirclement. If you need me to make a move, I will not hesitate to do so, Xiao Qin said. Ma Cheng split apart 2 corpses and said, I have a large area of effect martial technique. I think I can open a path. However, it takes a long time to activate. I will need junior brother Yi to protect me. That is not a problem, Xiao Qin said. Xiao Qin executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art. It was like a blue dragon was swimming around Ma Cheng. He used the scabbard in his hand like a wooden stick. When the corpses that pounced over were struck by Xiao Qin, they would immediately fly back. With Xiao Qin's protection, no corpses could come within 10 meters of Ma Cheng. Ma Cheng took a deep breath and a light flashed in his eyes. Suddenly, he took 2 steps forward and shouted. The surrounding spiritual energy flowed into his saber like flowing water. Flowing water breaking peak. There was the sound of gushing water in the tunnel. An otherworldly river gathered on Ma Cheng's saber. Ma Cheng's right wrist, which was holding the saber, trembled slightly. A visible wave spread out in all directions. The mountain-splitting saber technique was a very common saber technique in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. However, there were very few people who could practice the 9th move, flowing water-breaking peak. This Ma Cheng was indeed outstanding. Rumble. The corpses that were flying over from all directions were immediately blasted away. The river water swept away all the corpses that were in front of it as if they were dried twigs. It's not over yet. Condense. The saber in Ma Cheng's hand suddenly spun and the scattered river water gathered back together. In an instant, it shot out. All the corpses in a straight line were pierced through their chests. In the next instant, they fell apart and shattered into pieces. They could not be more dead than this. Flowing water breaking peak, so that's how it is. The flowing water is just the prelude. The final breaking peak is the true killing move, Xiao Qin thought to himself. The 2 of them took advantage of this opportunity and leaped out of the encirclement of the corpses. The space around them widened. The 2 of them executed their movement techniques and quickly shook off the corpses behind them. Let's go, let's quickly inform Marshal Uncle Yi. Xiao Qin and Xiao Qin ran towards the headquarters of the 8th layer of the tunnel. However, before they got far, they discovered something inconceivable. All the miners they met along the way had turned into corpses. This made it difficult for the 2 of them to move forward. Every step forward was incomparably difficult. Fortunately, these corpses did not have as strong a physical body as the corpses from earlier. With the strength of the two of them, they could easily chop these corpses into pieces. Another corpse charged at Xiao Chen without any regard for its life. Xiao Chen punched at its face. The wind from the punch caused the corpse's hair to flutter, revealing a pale face. Xiao Chen's expression changed and he could not help but stop. How could it be him? This corpse was actually the supervisor who pleaded with Xiao Chen last night. In just one night, his premonition had come true. Including him, all the miners who had reached the end of their 5-year term at the end of the month had turned into corpses. Shwa! In the instant that Xiao Chen was stunned, a saber light flew over and chopped the corpse in half. Ma Chen said anxiously, "What are you thinking about? Be careful not to get poisoned by the corpse poison. Otherwise, you will turn into a corpse as well." Who? Xiao Chen sent out 2 palm winds and blew the black liquid from the corpse to the side. Xiao Chen's expression did not change, but his heart felt like it had been stabbed by something. It was incomparably painful. "Let's go, stop staring blankly," Ma Chen quickly called out when he saw Xiao Chen standing there without moving. Xiao Chen grunted and did his best to calm his heart. He braced himself and followed behind Ma Chen, rushing quickly to the headquarters. All the 2,000 miners in the tunnel had turned into corpses. The two of them did not hesitate to make a move, they rushed forward as though they were breaking dry weeds. Normally, it would only take 10 minutes. However, this time, it took them more than an hour to reach the headquarters. However, something unexpected happened. The 10-odd martial saints who usually guarded the headquarters had all disappeared. The place was empty, not a single person could be seen. Piles upon piles of inferior-grade spirit stones filled the huge stone room. They shone brightly, almost blinding everyone's eyes. There was an indistinct barrier of light in front of the stone room. The two of them knew that this was a special barrier. Without proof, they would not be able to enter. Hence, they could only look at so many spirit stones. The two of them had not expected such an outcome after spending so much effort to rush over. After discussing for a while, they decided to find a place to rest first. They definitely could not go back, the place was already filled with corpses. The two of them were already tired of killing these corpses, they did not want to make another move. They took out the map and chose a rather desolate dead end. They were prepared to rest there before doing anything else. After rushing to the place indicated on the map, the two of them traveled a long distance before they relaxed. Ma Chen sat down on the ground and panted, "I have been here for so long, but this is the first time I encountered such a thing. This time, we might have really reached the end of the road." Xiao Chen's emotions had already slowly calmed down. He asked, "Senior brother Ma, you are very knowledgeable. Turning so many people into dried corpses is such a deranged action. Is there any way to do such a thing?" Ma Chen thought for a while before saying, "Aside from the already extinct running corpse sect in the Tianwu continent, I cannot think of any other reason. However, this running corpse sect has already disappeared for close to 1,000 years. The running corpse sect was an extremely evil sect. It rose up before the Tianwu dynasty. That was the most chaotic period of the human race and also the most glorious period of the running corpse sect. The running corpse sect was split into 2 factions. One faction focused on driving and controlling corpses. If they could obtain a strong corpse, their combat prowess would immediately increase greatly. This faction was the most criticized. For the sake of finding strong corpses, these people would often dig up the graves of people, opening coffins and digging up corpses. The corpses of ordinary people were not worthy of their attention. They only dug up the graves of the noble clans and large sections. These powers all had strong ancestors and were their first targets. Before the Tianwu dynasty, these people even dug up the corpse of a great emperor. The great emperor who had turned into a corpse was even more horrifying than when he was alive. No one in the continent could defeat him. However, in the end, they incurred the wrath of the public. The Tianwu emperor personally made a move and killed all the experts of this faction. From then on, this faction fell into decline. After the Tianwu dynasty, it completely disappeared from the world. Aside from this faction, there was another faction in the Running Corpse sect. This faction used corpses to prove their Tao. They used a special cultivation technique to refine themselves into corpses that were neither human nor ghost. Chapter 191. Compared to the other faction of the Running Corpse sect, they were much more low-profile and even stranger. For the sake of proving their Tao, some of them even slept underground for thousands of years. Back then, when the Tianwu Emperor killed his way into the Running Corpse sect, he killed all the experts of this faction. However, some of the old monsters hiding underground managed to escape. Although this faction survived, their cultivation technique was too strange. No one was willing to learn the Tao of corpses. Hence, the Running Corpse sect completely disappeared. After Xiaochen heard Ma Chen introduce the Running Corpse sect, he felt suspicious and asked, according to what you said, the corpses of the miners in the mine clearly do not have any combat prowess. Why did they turn them into corpses? Ma Chen smiled faintly and said, naturally, they do not have any combat prowess. If the bodies are not strong enough, there would not be any qualitative changes after turning them into corpses. The truly strong ones should be the first batch of corpses that we met. Only after they were refined using a special method would they have combat prowess. As for those miners, it should have been done in passing. After all, it is not difficult for them. Xiaochen revealed a furious expression. He clenched his left fist tightly and said, "Are these people so inhumane? They do not even let off ordinary people who have no grudges with them?" Ma Chen smiled and said, "Humane? These things that are neither human nor ghost, how can they be humane? They are no longer humans. Otherwise, they would not have incited public anger in the first place." After thinking for a while, Ma Chen said, "I wonder where Elder Yi and the others went. We are trapped here, unable to advance or retreat. If we do not get out, we might be trapped here until we die." The exit of the mine was a secret. It was impossible for these inner sect disciples who were here on a contribution mission to know about it. There were specialized people who used secret treasures to trap them before bringing them out. If anything happened to Yi Wen and the others, Xiao Chen and Ma Chen might not be able to get out of here. If they died here, their corpses might even be refined into corpses. Xiao Chen trembled at the thought of it. However, when he thought about it, he felt that nothing would happen to Yi Wen. Back then, when Xiao Chen told Yi Wen about Mu Xinya and Supervisor Li, Yi Wen's expression was very calm. He even warned Xiao Chen not to be nosy. Now that Xiao Chen thought about it, Yi Wen was hinting to him that he already knew about this matter. He was warning him not to alert them. Bang! Xiao Chen ferociously punched the wall to the side. The force of the punch was more than 1,000 jin. When the punch landed on the wall, a hole the size of a bowl immediately appeared. Stone chips fell down. If Yi Wen had known about this long ago, the lives of these miners could have been spared. However, for the sake of his own plan, Yi Wen did not move these miners away to avoid alerting the enemy. When Xiao Chen thought about the miners, he felt that it was not worth it. That night, Supervisor Zhao knelt before him and begged him to help the miners whose contracts were due at the end of the month. At the end of the month, those people could have safely left this never-ending hell-like mine tunnel to meet their wives and children and reunite with their families. But now, all of this was for naught. He thought that he had tried his best to take care of them and let them leave safely, but in the end, he had personally killed these miners who had turned into dried corpses. "Yi Wen, you are too ruthless." Ma Qing said in astonishment, "Junior Marshal Brother Yi, what are you trying to do? Don't think too hard. There will always be a way out. Elder Yi and the others will definitely deal with these dried corpses. At that time, there will naturally be a way out." "Who?" Before Ma Qing finished speaking, Xiao Chen suddenly made a move. He chopped at Ma Cheng's neck with his hand. Before Ma Cheng's astonished gaze, Xiao Chen knocked him out. Xiao Chen looked at the slowly collapsing Ma Cheng and said, "I'm sorry, I have to find that person and ask him for an explanation. Senior Marshal Brother Ma, I can only wrong you for now." After Xiao Chen said that, he dug a shallow hole in the ground and slowly placed Ma Cheng's body in. Then, he used the soft soil to bury Ma Cheng's body. With Ma Cheng's cultivation, breathing under such soft soil was not a problem. This way, those dried corpses would not be able to find him. While he was unconscious, he would be safe. After doing all this, Xiaochen walked forward with a determined expression. Yiwen was definitely in that place, in the cave that suppressed the Demon King. Xiaochen had been there once before. He basically remembered the route. As long as he found the mechanism, he would be able to rush there. After walking for a while, a petite figure slowly walked out from the corner in front. In the pitch-black tunnel, he could not see her appearance clearly. However, Xiaochen was very familiar with this person. After interacting with her for half a month, Xiaochen could easily recognize her from her silhouette, Mu Xinya. Mu Xinya looked at Xiaochen and smiled faintly. Senior Martial Brother Yi. Xiaochen could not be bothered to speak any nonsense. He drew the lunar shadow saber with a huang dang sound. When the saber left the scabbard, there was a resplendent electric light. The instant the electric light flickered, the pitch-black tunnel was incomparably bright. The expressions of the two of them froze under the electric light. Xiaochen's expression was cold, there was no expression on his face. Mu Xinya's cute face revealed a faint trace of grief. Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art, Roaming Dragon's 9 Transformations, Qingyun Peak Secret Technique, Clear Wind Chop. Xiaochen executed the high-level technique of the Blue Dragon Cloud Soaring Art, the Roaming Dragon's 9 Transformations. The instant the electric light disappeared, Xiaochen left behind 9 afterimages in the air. His feet did not touch the ground. Every afterimage changed directions in the air. 9 cool breezes blew in the tunnel. In an instant, Xiaochen executed 9 clear wind chops in a row. The saber was hidden in the wind, there was no killing chi. It was like a gentle lover whispering sweet nothings in the cool breeze. It was tender and sweet, like a spring breeze warming one's face. Shwa. The 9 afterimages merged together. Xiaochen sheathed his saber and stood quietly behind Mu Xinya. His delicate and ordinary face was expressionless, filled with frost. Pu Qi. Blood spurted out of the 9 death acupoints on Mu Xinya's chest. Bai Hui, Qingming, Jiwei, Juk, Shinkei, Qihai, Guanyuan, Zhongji, and Sugu. She fell to the ground with a bang. If the 9 death acupoints on Mu Xinya's chest were struck by a saber at the same time, even if one was as strong as a martial saint, they would die immediately. There was no medicine that could cure them, no one could save them. Mu Xinya's complexion turned pale. She smiled bitterly. I thought that after working together for half a month, even if you wanted to kill me, you would let me finish speaking first. I did not expect Senior Brother Yi to be so heartless. Xiaochen said in a cold voice, I did not expect that under your innocent appearance, there was such a cruel heart. I thought that even if you had some ulterior motive, you would not implicate so many innocent people. Xiaochen knew that he was not a good person. However, he would not do such a heartless thing. However, this girl in front of him had subverted some of the bottom lines he held in his heart. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak and the survival of the fittest, there was already a lack of morals. People respected martial arts, the bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. From the first day he arrived in this world, the moment he was humiliated by the Shao clan, he had already thoroughly understood this principle. However, there were some things that no matter how the world changed, there was a bottom line that he had to hold on to. Killing the innocent for no reason was a bottom line that he had to hold on to. Mu Xinya had already crossed Xiaochen's bottom line. She deserved to die. If Yiwen did not have a reasonable explanation, he would seek justice for those miners who had died. Pooh. Pooh. Just as Xiaochen was preparing to leave, Mu Xinya's corpse started to move. Xiaochen quickly stopped and looked over. A corpse transformation? Under Xiaochen's suspicious gaze, Mu Xinya's skin looked like it had been sliced open with a knife. It split open with a schwa sound. A human figure slowly came out of the skin. She was completely naked, she was not wearing any clothes. Her silver hair flowed behind her. In the dark tunnel, the silver hair gave off a faint glow, making the girl in front of him look like a fairy. Her snow-white skin was faintly discernible in the dark night. It was extremely alluring. Xiao Chen's gaze pierced through the darkness. However, he did not pay attention to the part that would make people vomit blood. Instead, he stared at the person's ears. It was a pair of pointed ears, like the fairy in the movies. They were extremely beautiful. However, there were no fairies in this world. This pair of ears were obviously not human. It was clear who this girl was. She was a demonic woman, a fiend race woman. Mu Xinya waved her hand and a long white robe appeared on her body. She quickly put it on in front of Xiao Chen, covering up all her body parts. Mu Xinya looked at Xiao Chen and said, "Senior brother Yi, it is not convenient for me to tell you the reason for this. The entire spirit mine is in chaos now. Stay here and don't move. After I settle this, I will bring you out. I said it before, I will do my best to find an opportunity to save you and return the favor." Who? After Mu Xinya spoke, her figure flashed and turned into a silver bolt of lightning. She quickly disappeared from Xiao Chen's sight. Her speed was actually faster than Xiao Chen's small perfection blue dragon cloud soaring art. Xiao Chen was stunned for a while. In the instant he was stunned, Mu Xinya's figure had already disappeared. Chase. Xiao Chen followed the path that Mu Xinya had taken and chased after her. He discovered that the path that Mu Xinya took was to the place where the Fiend King was being suppressed. It was the same route that Xiao Chen remembered. All the traps along the way were activated. Xiao Chen followed without any obstructions. After a while, he finally arrived at the huge underground cave. Chi. 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 Before Xiao Chen got close, he could hear the sounds of intense fighting. The sounds of killing shook the sky and angry roars resounded. Xiao Chen hid himself and extended out his spiritual sense. He carefully observed the situation in the cave. Within the cave, the underground river acted as a boundary. The Divine Saber Camp's bladesmen who were suppressing the Fiend King all stood there with their sabers in their hands, not making a move. On the other side of the river was a large army of corpses. They were all the corpses that had been refined using a special method. A rough count gave at least 1,000 corpses. Furthermore, new corpses continued to pour out from the underground. They filled up the huge underground cave. With one glance, it was enough to make one's scalp go numb. A large group of Heavenly Saber Pavilion martial saints were guarding the river, engaging in an intense battle with the corpses that wanted to cross. The scene of the intense battle far surpassed Xiao Chen's expectations. The clear river water was already dyed red. The strength of these corpses also surpassed Xiao Chen's original estimation. Even a martial saint expert would not be able to kill these specially refined corpses in one strike. Chapter 192. There were only 200 martial saints in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. This was far less than the number of corpses. They were in a very passive position. They were having a hard time defending. However, the main forces of both sides had not made a move yet. The Divine Saber Camp's bladesmen stood in front of the Fiend's sealing stone. They withdrew their killing chi and held their sabers tightly. They had no intention of making a move. Xiao Chen looked for a long time, but he did not discover any martial monarch experts in the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. There were only 10 martial king elders standing in the distance, expressionlessly observing the situation on the battlefield. Among this group of martial kings, Xiao Chen found Yuan. Yuan was the same as before. His expression did not reveal what he was thinking. He was very calm, as though everything was under his control. On the side of the running corpse sect, there were no strong corpses. There were only 3 huge corpses standing in the middle of the battlefield. These 3 corpses were 5 meters tall. They had dark skin and a thick black chi flowed out of their bodies. The corpses roared continuously. Xiao Chen only took a glance from afar and felt a huge pressure. It made him feel fear. Are these 3 corpse kings? Xiao Chen thought in horror. For a corpse to become a corpse king, it had to be at least a martial monarch when it was alive. After it died and was refined into a corpse, it had to retain the martial techniques and combat experience it had when it was alive. Under the special control of the Running Corpse sect, it was much stronger than a regular martial monarch. This was because they had an undying body, they did not fear pain. They had muscles of copper and bones of steel, impenetrable by weapons, impervious to fire and water. Beside the 3 corpse kings, there were hundreds of 2-meter-tall corpses. They were covered in black chi and were tall and sturdy. Their aura was different from the other corpses. These should be the mutated corpses that were second only to the corpse kings. In terms of strength, they would be able to hold their own against a martial king. Behind the corpse kings, there were 10 people dressed in black. They stood quietly in the shadows of the corpse kings. Xiao Chen discovered Supervisor Li among them. Further back, Xiao Chen's spiritual sense discovered more than 10 corpse monarchs standing there, not making a move. These were the successors of the Running Corpse sect, who cultivated the Tao of corpses. They had turned themselves into something that was neither human nor ghost. Compared to regular corpses, they had the thoughts of a normal person. They were extremely difficult to deal with. Regular martial kings would not be a match for them. Xiao Chen was suspicious. With such a strong lineup of the Running Corpse sect, why are the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's people so calm? There are only 10 martial kings. Although the Divine Saber Camp's bladesmen had a horrifying baleful aura, they were only peak martial saints and medial grade martial saints. No matter how experienced they were, they would not be a match for the Corpse King. The battle in the river was leaning more and more towards the Running Corpse sect side. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's martial saints' formation slowly crumbled. Many of the corpses rushed to the other side. However, before these corpses could get far, a few powerful forces flew over and smashed them into pieces. Their skin, which was harder than metal, was as soft as tofu in front of this force. Xiao Chen took a closer look and discovered that the energy came from the martial kings. The strength of a martial king was indeed different from that of a martial saint. With just one strike, Xiao Chen could easily shatter these mysteriously refined corpses. After King Wu made his move, the situation that was already leaning towards the Running Corpse sect slowly became balanced again. Who? Suddenly, a silver figure flew over from the sky. That person's silver hair was extremely dazzling. His agile body landed firmly beside the 3 corpse kings. Supervisor Li frowned and walked forward. Princess Mu, why are you only here now? Mu Xinya looked at the situation and said indifferently, I am dealing with some private matters. There is no need to worry about it. What is the situation now? Supervisor Li said, for some reason, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion Supreme Elder has not come out yet. I am unable to grasp the situation, so I did not attack. Mu Xinya thought for a while before saying, there is no need to worry about it. Let's just attack. Once the demonic ancestor comes out, no matter how many Supreme Elders the Heavenly Saber Pavilion sends, it will be pointless. Supervisor Li asked, are you confident? If you fail, then the 100 years of hard work of the Running Corpse sect will all be for naught. Mu Xinya took out a black arrow flickering with light. She said, this is my race's ancient forbidden weapon. It has been passed down since the ancient era. Furthermore, it has been refined by our descendants for thousands of years. As long as I can enter the 9 subduing saber demon formation, I am confident of shattering the fiend's sealing stone. At that time, all the realms in the spirit mine will be destroyed. The spirit stones inside will be ownerless. There is a large number of spirit stones in the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion. It will be sufficient for you to revive the Running Corpse sect. After Supervisor Li heard this, he thought for a while and discussed with the people behind him. Finally, he made up his mind and said, attack. The 10 black-clothed men controlling the corpses kept changing their hand gestures. The corpses on the ground all flew up with a bang and flew over. Within the cave, there was a ka-ka-ka sound coming from the walls in all directions. It was like a flower was blooming. Corpses jumped out one by one. These corpses seemed to have gone berserk. Their strength increased significantly in an instant. The situation tilted in the Running Corpse sect's favor. Before the remaining 100 martial saints in the river could retreat, they were torn to shreds by these corpses. The 10 martial kings of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion exchanged glances. They executed their movement techniques and quickly rushed to the back of the cave, allowing the berserk corpses to charge at them. Kill! Just at this moment, the 100 bladesmen of the Divine Saber camp finally made their move. They shouted at the same time, their voices shaking the ground. The entire cave trembled slightly. A surging killing chi was released without holding anything back. It linked together and formed a vast sea. A formless baleful aura enveloped the entire cave. The baleful aura penetrated into the bones. Even though these were corpses that had died long ago, the instinct that came from their flesh and blood caused them to tremble continuously. Bang! 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 The sabers were drawn. The sound of hundreds of sabers being drawn resounded throughout the cave. The sabers were 1 meter long and 2 centimeters wide. There was a scarlet glow on the body of the saber. With one look, one could tell that this was not an ordinary saber. This saber was called the bloodsucker saber. When the saber was inserted into a living person's body, with a special cultivation technique, it could instantly suck the blood of a living person dry. There was once a powerhouse of the Divine Saber camp who sucked his opponent dry with one saber strike. The forging method of the saber had been lost long ago. There were only 1,000 of them left in the Divine Saber camp. Those who were not disciples of the Divine Saber camp, even core disciples, could not obtain this saber. After the 100 bladesmen of the Divine Saber camp made their move, the situation immediately turned around. Those refined corpses that even martial saints found hard to deal with were refined corpses. In front of the Divine Saber camp disciples, they only used one saber strike to suck the corpses dry. After the corpses died, they turned into strands of black resentment and flew into the saber. The more corpses they killed, the more horrifying the resentment absorbed by the bloodsucker saber became. These Divine Saber camp disciples were like demons from hell, their expressions were extremely malevolent. They looked very ferocious, even more horrifying than the corpses. The more resentment there was, the denser the baleful aura on their bodies. The speed and strength of their sabers increased explosively. Using killing to prove the Tao, Xiaochen thought to himself in astonishment. No wonder when he first saw the Divine Saber camp disciples, he had a horrifying killing intent in his heart. He did not expect the Heavenly Saber Pavilion to have such an evil cultivation technique. Using killing to prove the Tao, using the joy of killing to comprehend one's own martial Tao. All martial techniques had killing as their first goal. This kind of cultivation technique was even more horrifying than using corpses to prove the Tao. Every cultivator who used killing to prove the Tao would have to kill at least 1,000 cultivators in their lifetime. Furthermore, the people they killed could not be of a lower cultivation. Otherwise, it would not be of any help to their cultivation. They could collect the resentment of their enemies after they died and use it to raise their own cultivation. It was very horrifying. A cultivator who used killing to prove the Tao would be able to hold his own against an opponent one realm higher than him. If the opponent was careless, he could even kill them easily. The most important thing was that these people were not afraid of death. The closer they were to the edge of life and death, the more excited they would be. Their strength would even increase exponentially. There were only 100 Divine Saber camp bladesmen, but they were able to defend the 9 subduing saber demonic formation like an iron bucket. It was airtight and watertight. Any corpses that got close were instantly killed. Under the control of the black-clothed men, the corpses continued to charge forward. In an instant, the sounds of killing shook the sky, they were like thunder. The entire underground cave was like hell on earth. It was a tragic sight, blood flowed like a river. Not long after, the Divine Saber camp's bladesmen killed more than 1,000 of the most ordinary refined corpses. However, the Divine Saber camp had 0 casualties. A boundless black resentment lingered on the bloodsucker saber. If one looked closely, there were countless aggrieved spirits crying out in pain within the resentment. The Divine Saber camp's people were not fatigued. Instead, under the stimulation of the resentment, they became even stronger. Supervisor Li was astonished. Although he knew that the divine saber camp was very strong, he did not expect them to be so horrifying. Killing these refined corpses was as easy as chopping vegetables. Mu Xinya said indifferently, "Don't be frightened. They are only using a special secret technique to increase their strength. These corpses without any intelligence cannot harm them. Conserve your strength and use the mutated corpses." Supervisor Li nodded and waved his hand. The 100 or so mutated corpses surrounded by black corpse chi all jumped over with a so sound. The mutated corpses already had a basic level of intelligence. Most of the combat instincts they had when they were alive had been preserved. With just one command, they would automatically attack. Furthermore, he was very strong. When he was alive, he was at least a martial king. After he received the order, he moved like an arrow and instantly flew across the 100-meter wide underground river, arriving in front of the divine saber camp's bladesmen. Kill. The number of mutated corpses was equal to the number of divine saber camp's bladesmen. The moment both sides came into contact, they immediately started fighting. The mutated corpses were much stronger than the corpses refined from the corpses of ordinary miners. Even the strong divine saber camp's bladesmen could not kill them instantly. The bloodsucker saber in their hands chopped at the mutated corpses, giving off a metallic sound. There were no wounds on the mutated corpses. They gave off a strange laughter and used all sorts of martial techniques they knew when they were alive. Chapter 193. Relying on the strength of their physical bodies, these mutated corpses held a significant advantage over the divine saber camp's bladesmen. As time went by, this advantage slowly grew. Solitary eagle claw. The right hand of a corpse suddenly enlarged. Its 5 black fingers were as sharp as a beast's claw. There was a sonic boom in the air as it stabbed into the body of a divine saber camp's bladesman. That divine saber camp's bladesman revealed an expression of pain. A ruthless look flashed in his eyes as the bloodsucker saber chopped at the neck of this mutated corpse. The skinny corpse revealed a strange smile. It ignored the bloodsucker saber on its body and used its right claw to pull out the heart of the divine saber camp's bladesman. Pu Ci. The bloodsucker saber lit up with a scarlet glow. This final strike sucked out all the bones and flesh from the mutated corpse. Similar scenes were happening in other places. Occasionally, there would be divine saber camp's bladesmen being killed. However, the instant they died, these divine saber camp's bladesmen would kill a mutated corpse with their final strike. The battle was very miserable. It was a scene of mutual destruction. It was very bloody and unbearable to watch. On the other side of the river, Mu Xinya looked at the scene opposite her. She fiddled with the arrow in her hand and said in a deep voice, "They are going to make their move. Cover me." When the 2 corpse monarchs heard this, they walked out and quickly followed Mu Xinya. The divine saber camp's bladesmen in front wanted to block Mu Xinya's footsteps. Before they could get close, they were slapped away by the 2 corpse monarchs. The wind from their palms contained a huge force. With a schwa sound, they sent the divine saber camp's bladesmen flying. The 10 martial kings of the heavenly saber pavilion watched the situation from afar. They watched as Mu Xinya led the 2 corpse monarchs towards the 9 concealed saber demon formation, step by step. Mu Xinya had a bad premonition. Why does it feel easier than I imagined? The defenses of the heavenly saber pavilion should not be so weak. Whatever, as long as the fiend ancestor comes out, with the sage energy of the fiend ancestor, no one in the heavenly saber pavilion would be able to block him. At that time, all schemes would be useless in front of absolute strength. Go, demon-slaying arrow. The so-called forbidden artifacts mostly referred to artifacts that could only be used once or twice or thrice. They were refined by artifact refiners in ancient times, and because of the limited number of times they could be used, most of them possessed peerless power that could shake heaven and earth. Under Mu Xinya's control, the black arrow gave off a dazzling black light. A destructive aura came from the arrow. A gust of wind appeared around Mu Xinya. A strong wind came from Mu Xinya's surroundings and spread out in all directions, except for the 2 corpse monarchs. The mutated corpses and the divine saber camp's bladesmen were instantly blown away by the strong wind. Within 100 meters, there was a huge empty space. Whoosh! The sound of the arrow tearing through the air could be heard. A ray of light flashed by and the arrow collided with the suppressing demon stone, causing a huge explosion. The huge stone shattered into countless pieces. Rumble. The instant the demon-suppressing stone shattered, the entire cavern began to shake. Even Xiao Chen, who was standing far away, began to sway left and right because of the sudden shaking. Roar. There was a loud roar coming from below the demon-suppressing stone. It sounded like it came from ancient times. Suddenly, a huge beast claw stretched out and smashed the ground violently. This attack did not differentiate friend from foe. The divine saber camp's bladesmen and corpses that could not dodge in time were smashed into mush. Bang! The ground shook again. Another huge beast claw smashed out. Another large number of mutated corpses and divine saber camp's bladesmen were smashed to death. When the 10 heavenly saber pavilion martial kings hidden in the depths of the cavern saw the fiend king coming out, their expressions started to change. Yuan said, "The fiend king is coming out. It is time to inform the 7 peak masters and supreme elders." The other 9 people nodded and waved their sleeves. A jade strip shot out from each of their hands. The jade strips gave off a faint spiritual light and formed a strange formation in the air. Mysterious talisman scripts floated out from the jade strips and turned into motes of starlight. It was incomparably resplendent. Xiao Chen's spiritual sense did not notice this. Instead, he was looking at the demon-suppressing stone in astonishment. The peerless fiend king slowly walked out. At this moment, the fiend king's figure was completely revealed. It was a 50-meter-tall huge wolf. Its white fur was very dazzling in the dark tunnel. It had 2 huge fangs that flickered with a cold light. Its scarlet eyes flickered with a faint red light. The aura of the peerless fiend king spread out. The surrounding divine saber camp's bladesmen and the corpses that had been dead for a long time all trembled. They could not help but prostrate themselves on the ground. It was like there was a huge pressure on their shoulders. They could not breathe or get up. Ah! The fiend king roared angrily. There was an unending string of explosions in the air. It was deafening, causing one's scalp to go numb. The fiend king grabbed the soul chains and with a pu sound, the 9 soul holy weapons stuck in the ground shook non-stop. Finally, they could not withstand the fiend king's horrifying strength and were all pulled up and tossed far away. Hu Chi. A huge claw grabbed a divine saber camp bladesman like it was grabbing a mouse. That bladesman struggled violently in the fiend king's grasp, but he did not fear anything. Pu Ci. The huge claw clenched ferociously and crushed the divine saber camp bladesman's bones. He bled from his 7 orifices and died. The fiend king tossed the divine saber camp bladesman's corpse into the air. When it fell, it tore it in half, causing a large amount of blood to fall. The huge wolf opened its mouth and blood poured into it like a fountain. Bang! It punched the wall and the entire cave started shaking violently again. Rocks fell continuously from above, shaking the cave. This was the strength of the peerless fiend king. Just a casual wave of its hand could cause the ground to shake. When the group of black-clothed men from the running corpse sect in the distance saw the boundless might of the fiend king, they revealed an excited expression. It has been more than 100 years. I finally see hope. Who in the heavenly saber pavilion can block such a strong force? My running corpse sect is destined to rise in this era. Mu Xinya's petite body knelt respectfully on the ground. She said in a deep voice, "The heavenly wolf race's 180th successor of the Wang clan greets the sage ancestor. It has been 1,000 years, a whole 1,000 years. This king is finally out. Ha 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 ha. I want to wash the heavenly saber pavilion in blood, to take revenge for being trapped here for 1,000 years." The peerless fiend king laughed maniacally. After a while, he stopped. He looked at Mu Xinya on the ground and said, "Rise, my descendant." I can feel the pure heavenly wolf bloodline in your body. I will bestow upon you supreme glory. Mushinya stood up and said, "It is Mushinya's glory to be able to rescue the sage ancestor." Now, the heavenly wolf race is in a dangerous situation in the ancient desolate land. Wind and rain are everywhere. Sage ancestor, please consider the bigger picture and leave this place quickly. The Fiend King muttered, "There is no problem. I have already recovered 1/5 of my strength. If I want to leave the heavenly saber pavilion, no one will be able to stop me. When I take away the spirit veins origin and advance to Fiend Emperor, the entire world will submit to the feet of the heavenly wolf race. 1/5 of my strength is already so strong. If I recover all my strength, how strong would I be?" Xiaochen thought in horror. Who? A figure quickly flew towards Xiaochen. When he felt the wind, Xiaochen's heart tightened. He executed the blue dragon cloud soaring art and quickly retreated. However, just as Xiaochen stabilized himself, a skinny claw suddenly came out of the ground and grabbed hold of his right foot. The skinny claw pulled gently and an irresistible force was transmitted. Xiaochen's body was like a sandbag as he crashed into the wall. After that, he landed heavily on the ground. I did not expect an ant-like person like you to be able to dodge the attacks of hundreds of refined corpses. After struggling to stand up, Xiaochen clearly saw the appearance of this person. He discovered it was the corpse monarch that knew the earth evasion technique. He wore golden robes and had a dazzling golden crown on his head. The strength of the corpse monarch was unfathomable. It was at least a martial king. Compared to Xiaochen, who was an inferior grade martial grand master, it was a realm higher. Xiaochen would not even have a chance to escape. Boom! As Xiaochen was thinking, the corpse monarch's hard black fist was already flying over. It was a straightforward punch without any fancy moves. It carried a huge force as it smashed towards Xiaochen's face. This was the corpse monarch relying on his speed and strength. It was an ordinary punch, not a martial technique. However, when the corpse monarch executed it, it was very imposing. The wind whistled. Before Xiaochen could think, the black fist was already in front of him. Relying on his instincts, Xiaochen clenched his right fist and punched out. Bang! The fists collided. The two of them relied on the strength of their physical bodies. The huge force created a spiral ripple in the air. It did not dissipate for a long time. The other party's strength was much stronger than Xiaochen's. Xiaochen was sent flying like a sandbag by this punch, crashing into the wall behind him again. The force from the corpse's fist jolted Xiaochen's internal organs, causing them to churn. Blood leaked out of the corner of Xiaochen's mouth. He had sustained significant internal injuries. This was the first time Xiaochen was at a disadvantage in a competition of physical strength. Xiaochen had cultivated his physical body for more than 10 years when he was young. Then, he tempered it with the 7 leaf flowers. His entire body could be said to have been reborn. The force of a punch could reach more than 1,500 kilograms of force. It could easily shatter rocks. However, that corpse monarch specialized in cultivating his physical body. His entire body had already turned into a corpse. After cultivating for more than 100 years, a casual punch of his could reach 5,000 kilograms of force. 5,000 kilograms of force versus 1,500 kilograms of force. It went without saying who was stronger. The corpse monarch looked at Xiaochen, who was struggling to stand up again. There was a surprised expression in his eyes. His punch looked casual, but the force contained within it was enough to cripple a martial saint's right hand. Even a martial saint would be able to cripple his right hand easily. His opponent was only a martial grand master. This punch should have shattered his heart and lungs. Who? The corpse monarch's figure flashed and his skinny claws grabbed Xiaochen's neck. He easily lifted him up and placed his other hand on Xiaochen's chest. Chapter 194. G.A. G.A. Interesting, there are actually cultivators who specialize in tempering the physical body. Such a good physical body is sufficient to refine a golden ancient corpse. After I hand you over to my senior brother, he will refine you into an undefeatable corpse. At that time, being undefeatable will be your glory. Seeing that the corpse monarch wanted to refine him into a corpse, Shao Chen was startled. However, his throat was being grabbed by the corpse monarch. The corpse monarch was like a clamp. No matter how Shao Chen struggled, he did not fear it. He could not bring out the essence in his body. All his techniques were crippled, there was nothing he could do. The corpse monarch smiled coldly and punched Shao Chen's dantian with his left hand. After that, he retracted his hand and tapped a few times. Strands of black qi leaked out and slowly entered Shao Chen's body. Shao Chen felt a black qi appear in his dantian. It turned into a horrifying cage, imprisoning his martial spirit. All the essence in his body disappeared. Shao Chen was horrified to discover that he had lost his connection with the blue dragon martial spirit. He could not feel the abundant essence in his body at all. He was no different from an ordinary person. Don't think about it anymore. This corpse king imprint of mine can be used for both offense and defense. It is more than enough to deal with an inferior grade martial grand master like you. With just a thought, I can make you explode and die. After the corpse monarch spoke, he carried Shao Chen's body back into the cave. Then, he tossed Shao Chen's body to Supervisor Li. Supervisor Li received Shao Chen's body suspiciously. After he saw his appearance, he smiled and said, "So, it is little Lord Yi. Why are you in such a sorry state?" Shao Chen remained expressionless and remained silent. He focused his spiritual sense on his dantian and carefully observed the corpse king imprint, trying to find a way to break it. A black cage stopped in that empty space. Strands of black qi spread out from it. A charred corpse sat cross-legged on top of the cage. One could vaguely see a surging river in the cage. The small blue dragon kept bombarding the black cage. Before Shao Chen's soul sense could get close, the corpse king sitting on top of the cage suddenly opened its eyes. A bright light swept over and destroyed most of the soul sense that Shao Chen's soul sense had sent over. Shao Chen's spiritual awareness could actually be extinguished. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. This corpse king's seal was really incredible. Senior Brother Li, take a look at this kid's body. It might even be possible to refine him into a golden ancient corpse. When Supervisor Li heard this, he revealed an astonished expression. He quickly checked Shao Chen's body. After a while, he revealed an expression of joy, but it quickly dimmed. This is not an innate divine body. It was tempered in the later stages. It is still not good enough to refine an ancient golden corpse. I will keep it for now. After I water it with the lunar water, it should not be a problem to refine it into an ancient bronze corpse. Rumble. As these people spoke, a few beams of divine light descended from the 9 hidden saber demon formation on the other side of the river. Aside from Qingyun Peak, the peak masters of the other 6 peaks of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had all arrived. Behind the 6 of them, there were 6 old men standing quietly. Shao Chen saw Shen Manjun among them. These 10 people were the supreme elders of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. They were all martial monarchs. When the Fiend King saw the crowd, he revealed a mocking expression. It has only been 1,000 years, and the Heavenly Saber Pavilion has fallen to such a level. They do not even have a sage. Watch how I flatten the Heavenly Saber Pavilion today. A person walked out from the crowd. It was the strongest peak master of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, the Tianyue Peak's peak master, Ling Tianjing. He looked at the 50-meter-tall Fiend King and smiled faintly. You can still smile even at death's door. We have been waiting for this day for more than 100 years. Do you think that without our permission, the Fiend's sealing stone would be broken so easily by this girl? Mu Xinya's expression changed slightly. Could I have fallen for a trap? If that was the case, I would have become a sinner of the clan. Hu Qi. There was a flash of light on the Heavenly Wolf King's body. All the bones in his body gave off a pai li pa lat sound. With a xiao sound, he turned into a 2-meter-tall stout man. His silver hair casually flowed behind him, and his muscles bulged. It was an explosive sight to behold. He looked at the crowd and smiled. No matter what plan you have, it is useless in the face of absolute power. Die. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Ling Tianjing and the Celestial Wolf King's fists collided. A powerful shockwave caused the space around them to shatter, forming a black crack. The crack extended continuously, like a black tentacle. The surrounding divine saber camps, bladesmen and corpses that did not dodge in time were instantly devoured by the spatial crack. Rise! A gentle but strong energy wrapped around Mu Xinya and easily flung her to the other side of the underground river. Ling Tianjing's body somersaulted in the air and landed firmly on the ground. He said in a deep voice, "Form the 9-saber demon punishing formation and kill this fiend. Snatch the fiend core and aid us in advancing to martial sage." The 9 soul holy weapons on the ground shattered. The remaining 3 people held onto the soul chains and sealed the surrounding space. A small world materialized in that space. The crowd could only see the blurry chains encircling the space. 9-saber demon punishing formation, kill. Within the space sealed by the soul chains, the sounds of killing filled the air. Light flickered and 9 indistinct figures could be seen, each holding a soul holy weapon. He kept changing his position, conjuring the various formations of the 9-saber demon punishing formation, trapping the heavenly wolf king inside. Furious roars rang out from within the formation. It was clear that the heavenly wolf king was completely suppressed in this formation. He was at a disadvantage. Mu Xinya got up and walked anxiously to Supervisor Li. "Sect Head Li, I will increase the reward I promised you by half. Quickly go and help. Otherwise, there will be nothing left." The 9-saber demon punishing formation, the 9-saber demon subduing formation, and the 9-saber heavenly exterminating formation were the 3 great formations of the heavenly saber pavilion. They were executed by 9 people at the same time. The demon subduing formation was specially used to suppress enemies. Together with the fiend suppressing stone, it could even suppress someone as strong as a martial emperor. As long as the fiend suppressing stone was not destroyed, the people imprisoned in it would never be able to leave. The 9-saber demon punishing formation was specially used to kill enemies. Together with the formation, it could combine the strength of 9 people, allowing them to kill enemies 2 cultivation realms above them. The final 9-saber heavenly exterminating formation was the strongest of the 3 great formations. However, it required 9 martial sages to execute it at the same time. Legend had it that after the 9-saber formation was executed, it could destroy the heavens and the earth, kill gods and exterminate demons. However, the requirements of the formation were too high for the cultivator. In the history of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, there had never been a time when 9 martial sages appeared at the same time. Hence, this formation had never appeared. Whether this 9-saber heavenly exterminating formation existed or not, there had always been many different opinions. No one dared to say for sure. Supervisor Li had also heard of the might of the 9-saber demon punishing formation. When he saw that the situation was dire, he did not dare to be careless. "Senior brothers, whether our running corpse sect can regain its glory or not will depend on today's battle. If we win, we live; if we lose, we die." After Supervisor Li spoke, he led the black-clothed man to control 3 5-meter-tall corpse kings and another 10 corpse monarchs. They quickly crossed the river. They wanted to destroy the 9-saber demon punishing formation from the outside. In the depths of the cave in the distance, the thing that Yi Wen and the 10 heavenly saber pavilion martial kings summoned with the jade strip finally appeared. It was an ordinary wooden box. It was 1 meter long and 2 centimeters wide. Its black exterior made it look very plain. The words, "like the emperor descending personally," were written on the front of the wooden box in bold calligraphy. Yi Wen grabbed the wooden box and took the lead. He led the 10 martial kings over the 9-saber demon punishing formation and blocked Supervisor Li and the others. Supervisor Li smiled coldly and said, "You want to block us with just 10 martial kings?" Supervisor Li did indeed have such confidence. The 3 corpse kings had the strength of a martial monarch. Furthermore, there were 10 corpse monarchs who cultivated the Tao of corpses. Even if there were 10 peak martial kings, they would not be sufficient in front of him. Yi Wen smiled faintly and flipped his palm. The wooden box landed heavily on the ground. He looked at the crowd in a carefree manner. He did not care about Supervisor Li and the others at all. Supervisor Li looked at the words, like the Emperor descending personally, on the wooden box. He was stunned for a while before he laughed loudly. It is just a wooden token. Do you really think that just because it says, like the Emperor descending personally, you are a martial emperor? Even if a martial emperor came personally, I would refine him into a corpse. A bunch of things that are neither human nor ghost, they are boasting shamelessly. Yuan revealed a mocking expression. Then, he read softly, like, the Emperor, descending personally. Every time he read a word appeared on the wooden box. It gave off a resplendent and dazzling golden light. His aura rose continuously. After he finished reading the 4 words, the golden light covered Yuan's entire body. Every strand of his hair and every inch of his body turned into a pure golden light. He was like a deity descending to the mortal world. His aura rose to the peak. It was like a real martial emperor had descended. Kill. A golden figure of light flew out from the wooden box. It was holding a saber in its hand. In that instant, the light was resplendent and dazzling. The entire underground cave was filled with the golden light. It was so piercing that people could not open their eyes. They felt an incomparable pain. As the light flashed past, the 3 corpse monarchs were split in half. Their black blood splattered across the sky. Mu Xinya's exquisite face revealed a pained expression when she saw that resplendent golden light. She muttered, "It's over. That is a divine weapon. The hope of the heavenly wolf race for hundreds of years is gone, just like that. Divine weapon." Xiao Chen was shocked. This was not the first time he saw this wooden box. Back when he was in the shop outside Saber City and in front of Qingyun Peak, he had seen the same wooden box. In the entire world, there were only 10 divine weapons. However, no one knew where these 10 divine weapons were. Whether the divine weapon was a saber, a spear, a sword, a halberd, or a broadaxe, most people could not tell for sure. However, the strength of a divine weapon was undeniable. It could split mountains, overturn rivers and seas, destroy space, and chop apart the heavens and the earth. None of these were sufficient to describe the might of a divine weapon. Back then, the Thunder King traveled the world in search of all sorts of natural treasures. However, he only managed to forge the substandard divine weapon, the Thunderwood Sword. For the sake of gathering all the battle sage origins, he traveled the world to form a divine weapon. Unfortunately, he did not manage to do so before he died. However, if this wooden box really contained a divine weapon, then it would be too shocking. Back then, outside Saber City, the person who held this item was an old man without a martial spirit. If he had the heart, he might have been able to obtain this wooden box back then. Chapter 195. At this moment, when Xiao Chen saw Mu Xinya's expression, he had very complicated feelings. He hated this woman for being vicious and merciless, but he also sympathized with her. From the very start, she had fallen into the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's trap. The Heavenly Saber Pavilion only wanted to use her to break the Fiend's sealing stone and release the Fiend King. Then, they would kill the Fiend King and take its 1,000 years of cultivation. The Fiend's sealing stone was a strange stone of heaven and earth. It absorbed the essence of the sun and moon, as well as the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It formed naturally and contained a huge amount of energy. Aside from an ancient forbidden weapon, nothing could break it. At this moment, Xiao Chen understood that there was no such thing as absolute good or evil in this world. In terms of ruthlessness, the people of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion were even more ruthless than Mu Xinya. In order to not alert the enemy, they abandoned all the miners in the tunnels. Xiao Chen could roughly understand why the Heavenly Saber Pavilion did this. The calamity from 20 years ago had greatly weakened the Heavenly Saber Pavilion. All the sage cultivators had probably died in that calamity. As a result, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, had a huge gap in its strength. The huge Heavenly Saber Pavilion did not even have a single sage. In order to make up for this huge gap, the Heavenly Saber Pavilion had no choice but to use this Fiend King that had been locked up for 1,000 years. Be it its spirit core, skin, flesh, bones, or blood, they were all very valuable. As for Mu Xinya, she was completely clueless about all this. In the end, not only did she end up benefiting others, she even lost her life. No, the fate of the heavenly wolf race cannot end like this. Mu Xinya revealed a resolute expression. She did her best to gather her aura, preparing to fight to the death. Xiaochen pulled her back. Although he could not use his essence, he still had his strength. Mu Xinya could not struggle free immediately. Sending yourself to death? You should leave quickly. The people of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion noticed your plan long ago. The ending was decided from the start. Mu Xinya looked at Xiaochen in astonishment. She did not expect Xiaochen, who wanted to kill her earlier, to pull her back at this moment. Mu Xinya used some force and shook off Xiaochen's hand. She smiled and said, "Senior brother Yi, I told you before. My parents told me to come here. Actually, I was not willing. Everyone is afraid of death, but since we're already here, there's no way out. The Celestial Wolf clan also has no way out." Her smile was as bright and beautiful as ever. With a light tap of his feet, his figure swayed on the surface of the river, and he immediately arrived at the other side of the river, joining the battle. On the opposite bank, Yi Wen's entire body was emitting a golden light. He placed his hand on the wooden box and did not move at all. There were figures of light flying out of the wooden box continuously. The 9 martial kings behind him did not even make a move. With just a ray of light from the divine weapon in the wooden box, the people from the Running Corpse sect could not advance at all. The first saber light that was released directly split the 3 corpse kings that the Running Corpse sect entrusted with heavy responsibilities into 2 halves. After that, the light shadow carried a peerless blade edge and swept through the air. The light shadow was dazzling, and the blade light shot out in all directions. The people of Running Corpse sect reacted and were no longer instantly killed by the saber light. However, they could only dodge in all directions and could not find a chance to counterattack. As Supervisor Li dodged the wanton saber light in the air, he continuously made hand gestures, trying to reassemble the 3 corpse kings on the ground. The corpse kings already possessed an undying body. If one could not instantly shatter them, it would be very difficult to truly destroy them. As long as the controller was not dead, one could use a secret technique to revive them. If the 3 corpse kings could revive, they might be able to turn the situation around. Supervisor Li could already tell that Yi Wen could not completely control that divine weapon. The saber light in the air no longer had its initial sharp aura. This was a clear indication of the problem. It was not that the 9 people behind Supervisor Li did not want to make a move, but that they could not. They used the ground under their feet to transfer their essence to Yi Wen, allowing him to hold on. Even so, Supervisor Li felt extremely anxious. Due to the lack of physical strength, the black-clothed men controlling the corpse kings had all been killed. Only Supervisor Li could barely hold on. Normally, because the strength of this corpse king was too horrifying, it required 3 people to control it. Now that he was the only one left, it would be very difficult to revive it. Hu Qi. A silver figure in the air flew past everyone's heads at lightning speed, heading for Yi Wen. A huge silver wolf appeared behind her. This was the totem of the heavenly wolf race. It possessed a horrifying might. The huge wolf roared ferociously, creating a heavy sound wave. Xiaochen shattered all the light figures attacking Mu Xinya. Then, he quickly descended. Mu Xinya's right hand pulled back in the air, creating 5 sharp claw marks as she attacked Yi Wen. The 5 claw marks were as sharp as sabers. They gave off a chi-chi sound in the air. In the blink of an eye, they turned into 5 streams of scarlet energy. As the wind blew, they grew to more than 10 meters in an instant. Yi Wen did not dare to be careless. He pointed with his other hand and a golden humanoid figure quickly appeared from his body. Clone Chop. This was the secret technique of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's Jade Maiden Peak. Yi Wen learned it after he left Qingyun Peak. Now that he had the might of the divine weapon, its might was much more horrifying than usual. The figure of light was like a real person. After Mu Xinya dodged an attack, it immediately turned around nimbly and continued attacking. Mu Xinya changed her position 3 times in the air, but she still could not shake off the attack of the figure of light. Mu Xinya slowly calmed down and did her best to remain calm. She released her perception in the air with all her might. After a while, her face lit up with joy. She said indifferently, "Found it." Mu Xinya spun around in the air and swung her hands. A few invisible lights were instantly severed. Yuan used the clone chop and the figure he controlled immediately fell. It turned out that the secret of the clone chop's agility lay in these invisible lights. As long as the lights were severed, the figure of light could no longer be controlled. Ha! Just as Mu Xinya was about to fall, she shouted and leaped into the air like a ferocious wolf. She flew over Yi Wen's head and landed on the 9 martial kings behind him. Not good, Yuan cried out in his heart. Although Mu Xinya's cultivation realm was not high, if she were to fall, the 9 people behind her would suffer a calamity. These people had to pass their essence to him. There was no way for them to make a move. Right now, any one of them could easily kill these martial kings, who were usually insufferably arrogant. If one of the 9 were killed, the divine weapon that Yuan could barely control would immediately crumble. It would be countered by the divine weapon. Bang! Thinking of this, Yuan's expression turned grave. He took a deep breath and smacked the wooden box with his right hand. A ripple immediately spread out and bounced Mu Xinya back with a boom. Mu Xinya vomited a mouthful of blood and fell heavily to the ground. Yuan, who had executed this move, had an unsightly expression. The speed of the light that flew out of the wooden box also slowed down. The people of the Running Corpse sect, who had been exhausted from dealing with the attacks, finally had a chance to catch their breath. Supervisor Li took advantage of this opportunity and quickly formed hand seals. The 2 halves of the Corpse King's body slowly merged together. Bang! 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 Just at this moment, there was an unending chain of explosions within the 9 saber demon punishing formation. Cracks appeared in the space sealed by the soul chains before it shattered. The 9 saber demon punishing formation was broken. Everyone stared at this scene in astonishment. Soon after, they came to their senses and immediately retreated, fleeing from this region. The destruction of a small world had created such a destructive power. Even a martial king would not dare to face it head-on. Bang! A deafening sound rang out and the void shattered. The entire underground cavern shook incessantly. The water in the underground river surged and huge rocks fell from the top of the cavern. Xiaochen carefully dodged the huge rocks above him. He did his best to balance his body. At this moment, he could not use his essence. If he fell, he might be smashed by the huge rocks before he could get back up. Hu Qi! Hu Qi! 12 figures flew out of the 9 saber demon punishing formation. The soul holy weapons and soul chains in their hands had already shattered. All of their faces were incomparably pale. Ha ha ha! The 9 saber demon punishing formation is only a so-so. A desolate laughter came from within the surging dust. When the dust settled, the heavenly wolf king's stout figure slowly appeared. There were no other injuries on his body. His silver hair fluttered in the wind and his aura was as ferocious as before. The soul holy weapon specialized in attacking the soul. If a soul was destroyed, leaving behind an empty shell, naturally, it would not be able to exist alone in the world. The reason why Ling Tianzheng and the others chose to use the soul holy weapons to attack the heavenly wolf king was because his physical body was much stronger than a regular person's. If they used a physical weapon, it would not have much of an effect. However, they did not expect that even though the heavenly wolf king had only recovered a fifth of his strength, his soul energy was much stronger than his physical body. The 9 saber demon punishing formation materialized a total of 81 formations and 9,999 killing moves. Even with the soul holy weapons, they still could not do anything to the heavenly wolf king. After attacking for a long time, the heavenly wolf king actually found the weak point of the 9 saber demon punishing formation. He attacked with all his might and shattered this small space. The heavenly Wolf King's aura flourished and filled the sky. His gaze was like a torch as he scanned the surroundings. Everywhere his gaze passed, it caused the hearts of everyone to tremble. Hey! The Heavenly Saber Pavilion's divine weapon? The Heavenly Wolf King's gaze landed on the wooden box in Yi Wen's hand. His face lit up in joy as he said, with this divine weapon, our chances of obtaining the Spirit Vein's origin will be higher. Withdraw. The Heavenly Wolf King spread his fingers and sent out a huge force, traveling a distance of several dozen meters. Yi Wen felt his grip loosen and the wooden box was already in the Heavenly Wolf King's hands. The situation of the entire place turned around in an instant. Xiaochen watched all this in astonishment. He originally thought that the 12 Supreme Elders of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion would work together to execute the 9 Saber Demon Punishing Formation. Against the Heavenly Wolf King, who had lost his sharpness after being imprisoned for 1,000 years, it would be easy. There were no surprises. Xiaochen did not expect the 9 Saber Demon Punishing Formation to break so easily. Although the Heavenly Wolf King's soul energy was significantly weakened, the 12 Supreme Elders suffered from the backlash of the formation. They were even more injured. They could not do anything to the Heavenly Wolf King. They could only watch as he obtained the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's divine weapon. Actually, if the 9 Saber Demon Punishing Formation had been laid with a physical weapon, there might have been a different effect. The Heavenly Wolf King's body hadn't moved much in the past 1,000 years, so its bodily functions had definitely been weakened. Chapter 196. However, soul strength was different. In the past 1,000 years, the Heavenly Wolf King had been cultivating his soul strength when he was bored. Xiaochen could not be bothered with all this. He was currently doing his best to break the Corpse King imprint in his body. His spiritual sense turned into tens of thousands of arrows, shooting at the cage in his dantian. As long as a strand of spiritual sense could enter and contact the blue dragon martial spirit, he was confident of working together to destroy the Corpse King imprint. The black cage slowly spun. The Corpse King, who had been sitting on it the whole time, swept its gaze across. The arrows formed by the spiritual sense were all destroyed. Xiaochen did not give up. He looked for an opportunity to play hide-and-seek with the Corpse King with his spiritual sense. When Supervisor Li saw the situation turn around, he revealed a sinister smile. He controlled the Corpse King and the 10 Corpse Monarchs to charge at Yi Wen and the others. The commotion was very vast. All the Divine Saber Camp's bladesmen who were still able to fight rushed over and started a chaotic battle. Sand and rocks flew and a strong wind blew. The scene became intense once again. On the other side, of the 12 Heavenly Saber Pavilion Supreme Elders, the one with the highest cultivation, Shen Manjun, said sullenly, "There is no need to worry. The divine weapon cannot bring out its full strength in his hands. The damage to his soul is also greater than we imagined." An old man at the side added, "That's right. If we continue to attack, there is still a chance." The Heavenly Wolf King smiled coldly and used some force to knock open the wooden box in his hand. He said, "Let me take out this divine weapon that no one can wield. Let's see who can stop me then." The wooden box shattered into pieces and an ancient saber appeared. The saber was about 1 meter and 2 centimeters long. There were all sorts of ancient talisman scripts carved on the scabbard. The saber gave off a reserved glow and spiritual energy spread out. The Heavenly Wolf King's expression turned cold. He grabbed the saber hilt with his right hand and used a huge force to pull it out. Ka-ca. Before the astonished gazes of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion's people, the Heavenly Wolf King managed to pull the saber out by 1 centimeter. The Heavenly Wolf King's face lit up in joy. If he could pull out this divine weapon, even if his soul energy was injured, he would only be able to bring out 1/5 of his strength. Even if he had to face the entire Heavenly Saber Pavilion, he would not fear it. "Stop him, we can't let him pull out the Tianyu blade, otherwise the entire spirit mine will be destroyed." Leng Tianjing roared. 12 figures executed their best moves as they flew at the Heavenly Wolf King with lightning speed. Boom! Before the Heavenly Wolf King's smile faded, the saber revealed 2 centimeters. Suddenly, it released an intense, piercing, and dazzling light. A destructive energy came from the saber. Time seemed to come to a standstill. Everyone in the cavern was frozen in place. Their hearts were as clear as a mirror, and yet, they couldn't move their bodies. A faint blue energy ripple spread out in the air, and in the face of this irresistible power, the celestial Wolf King bore the brunt of the attack. Despite how powerful he was instantly sent flying. Shao Chen spat out a mouthful of blood. After he landed on the ground, the energy in the divine saber entered his body, giving off a crackling sound. His body kept rolling on the ground, and after a while, he turned back into a giant silver wolf that was more than 50 meters tall. No one had expected such a result. The insufferably arrogant heavenly Wolf King was actually knocked back to his original form by a ripple from the divine saber. If all the divine weapons were drawn, how strong would they be? After the heavenly universe saber released an intense light, the saber immediately returned to its scabbard and floated quietly in the air. The horrifying energy instantly vanished. Dang! 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 The broken wooden box on the ground quickly flew into the air and reformed, storing the divine weapon heavenly universe saber inside. Instantly, the aura of the divine weapon vanished. Everyone's bodies returned to normal. Shen Manjun stretched out her hand, and the wooden box flew back into her grasp. She glanced at the heavenly Wolf King and said expressionlessly, "I forgot. These 10 divine weapons were forged in the ancient era for the purpose of fighting against the fiend race. As a member of the fiend race, without the strength of a fiend emperor, he actually dares to pull out the divine weapons of humans. He overestimates himself. There is no need to care about him. He suffered a backlash from the divine weapon and will not be able to use his strength for a period of time." Leng Tianjing nodded and said, "Go and deal with the remnants of the running corpse sect first. Then, we will discuss how to deal with this beast." With the addition of the 12 Heavenly Saber Pavilion Supreme Elders, the running corpse sect no longer had the strength to resist. They could not retaliate and were forced into a retreat. A corpse monarch tried to use the earth evasion technique to escape. However, Leng Tianjing discovered it. He snorted coldly and stomped on the ground. The ground trembled like water and the corpse monarch was knocked out. Mu Xinya took advantage of the chaos and sneaked over to the Heavenly Wolf King's side. With the Heavenly Wolf King's huge body as a cover, the people of the Heavenly Saber Pavilion did not discover the petite Mu Xinya. "Sage Ancestor. Sage Ancestor. Are you all right?" Mu Xinya whispered anxiously into the Heavenly Wolf King's ear. Blood flowed out of the Heavenly Wolf King's mouth continuously. His eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. He was just one step away from obtaining the Spirit Vein's origin and advancing to Flying Fiend Emperor. He would become the first person in thousands of years. Under his leadership, the Heavenly Wolf race would rule the world. The entire Fiend race would rise once again. However, in the end, all his efforts would be for naught. One wrong step and he would fall into a bottomless abyss, losing everything. The Heavenly Wolf King turned its huge head slightly and looked at Mu Xinya in front of it. It slowly raised its left claw and used its sharp claws to make a crescent wound on Mu Xinya's forehead. Blood immediately spurted out from Mu Xinya's forehead. She was startled. She knew what the Heavenly Wolf King was going to do. She said, "Sage Ancestor, you can't." On the other side of the battlefield, the people of the running corpse sect had already been mostly wiped out. Only a few corpse monarchs were still resisting tenaciously. The corpse king controlled by Supervisor Li had been crushed into dust by the 3 martial monarch supreme elders. There was no way for him to revive. Suddenly, boundless black qi came out from Shao Chen's pores. When the black qi dissipated, the corpse king imprint in his body instantly vanished. It turned out that the corpse monarch that had used the corpse king imprint had already been killed by one of the supreme elders. Naturally, the corpse king imprint that he had set up had dissipated. When the essence returned to Shao Chen's meridians, his face lit up in joy. His body had completely recovered. Shao Chen thought to himself, "Since I no longer have anything to worry about, I should leave this place." "Who?" Just as Xiao Chen was preparing to leave, a figure tore through the air and arrived before Xiao Chen at lightning speed. Without saying anything, he attacked. That figure was the Biyun Peak's peak master, Song Quebec. He had accidentally seen Xiao Chen's figure earlier. A killing intent instantly surged out. He immediately stopped fighting and flew towards Xiao Chen at lightning speed. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation realm, he could not even see the trajectory of a peak martial king's movement technique and the speed of his attack. He could not react in time. Xiao Chen immediately received a punch to his dantian. Song Kei's new and old grudges merged together. He did not hold back in this punch at all. Bang! Xiao Chen's eyes were filled with shock. His body flew into the air like a kite with its string cut. The blue dragon, which had just regained its freedom, was smashed into pieces by this peak martial king's punch. It turned into balls of azure light and dissipated within his body. Spiritual energy flowed out of his body like flowing water. Xiao Chen thought in horror, "It's over, my martial spirit is destroyed. I am crippled for life." This was Xiao Chen's last thought. Before he had the time to think further, he had already fainted. With a kapiyu tong sound, he sank into the underground river. The rapid current of the river immediately washed Xiao Chen's body downstream. Yi Chen. Yiwen sent a corpse flying with a palm strike. He was completely stunned by this sudden turn of events. He looked angrily at Song Kei and revealed a sinister expression. He said, "How dare you kill my Qingyun Peak's disciple? I want your life." Yiwen pushed his feet off the ground and he had already crossed the river and arrived beside Song Quebec. The small saber in his hand created a cool breeze. The saber was hidden in the cool breeze as it chopped towards Song Kei's chest. The two of them were both martial kings. Song Kei's cultivation was originally much higher than Yiwen's. However, he had suffered from the backlash of the 9-saber demon punishing formation earlier. Furthermore, he had used his full power in that earlier attack. At this moment, his essence was insufficient. When the Great Perfection Clear Wind Chop was executed, the saber could not be seen at all. It was impossible to defend against. Song Kei dodged in a sorry state. He could not even catch his breath. He was actually beaten up in such a manner. "Go to hell!" Yiwen suddenly roared. The saber hidden in the cool breeze suddenly moved closer to Song Quebec. It spun very quickly. This was another secret technique of Qingyun Peak, mysterious wind chop. Song Kei originally thought this attack was still the clear wind chop. He was caught off guard. The spinning saber created countless air currents. It was very fast. At such a close distance, it was impossible to dodge. Damn it, I was too careless. I actually allowed him to execute the mysterious wind chop at such a close distance, Song Kei thought vexedly. Actually, he had not expected that Yiwen would actually kill him, a peak master, for the sake of an insignificant Xiao Chen. Even though Song Kei had already retreated quickly to the side, the speed of the mysterious wind chop was simply too fast. Song Kei had no way of dodging it. Pu Ci. One of Song Kei's arms was chopped off. The mysterious wind formed by the saber instantly tore his arm into pieces. A large amount of blood and flesh scattered in the air. "Ah!" Song Kei cried out in pain. He looked at his left arm, which had been smashed into pieces. His face revealed a horrified expression. He could not believe what had happened. "Die!" Yiwen turned around and kicked the distracted Song Quebec. He waved the small saber in his hand in the air. The saber left a few afterimages in the air, piercing towards Song Kei's heart. When it was only an inch away from Song Kei's chest, a few Supreme Elders saw the situation and rushed over. A martial monarch Supreme Elder made his move at lightning speed. He stretched out his fingers and caught the saber that Yiwen was thrusting at him with. He shouted angrily, "Yiwen, what are you trying to do? You are going against your superiors. Are you tired of living?" Yiwen used some force and twisted his wrist, freeing the small saber from the old man's fingers. He said indifferently, "Killing a fellow disciple for no reason. Even if he is a peak master, he has to die. Is the matter of a peak master something for an insignificant elder like you to speak? The law enforcement hall will investigate the matter and give justice to your Qingyun peak disciple, a supreme elder at the side said.